Greetings and welcome to GatherVerse Women's Health Summit, the second edition, 2026. We're so happy to have each of you join us today for this very special GatherVerse 41st Global Summit. When I was young and just becoming an entrepreneur, a tragedy struck in my life. My mother, she had a heart condition. And ultimately, she succumbed to this condition itself. I don't talk about this publicly and often, but someone asked me, why this summit? Inevitably, what happened, I believe, was purposed. But for me, in the consideration of the exploration of medicine and technology itself, and the advances of where we've been and what we've arrived to, but so much further to go, this and more set me on the pursuit of the study at the intersection of medicine and health. And in this pursuit, I began to understand that when it comes to medicine, when it comes to health, and women in particular, there's such a disbalance of technical innovation. And at the rate and the rapid succession of hyperscale at which technology emerges from the ecohabitat itself, we must fill the gap. Not only for the preservation of the scale of technology, but more so of how this technology persists and interacts in our daily lives, whether in the surgical theater, whether in interaction with practitioners, and the tools that specialists and surgeons use around the world, whether it's with telemedicine, or the various other 29 different departments that make up the typical average hospital. We're in an unprecedented time of technical innovation and scale, unlike anything we've ever known and will ever know. With AI being as persistent and as aggressive as it is in its scale, in its rapid succession, we realize that there is a disbalance when it comes to who's building these models, who's building these platforms, these multi-headed agentic systems, if you will. And we'll find out that the vast majority in the world of over 1,800,000 models are made by men. And we celebrate everyone that has the opportunity to innovate. But we must be careful on the cultural and intercultural contribution of technology that's made, not just for us when it comes to early adoption and subscribing and using, but also for how it also will impact us and be so involved in our lives in ways we've never even fathomed, if you will. With GatherVerse, we address these issues and more head on. And we do this at the intersection of emerging technologies with human first considerations of innovation and education, accessibility, community development, equality, safety, privacy, wellness, ethics, compassion, and more. We explore technologies such as physical AI and when it comes to XR and extended reality. We assemble global hearts and speakers from around the world to share with us from their lens perspective and to celebrate the various perspectives transmetropolitan, transcontinental. When you think about the magnitude of this opportunity to even have such a summit, it can reward us with expression that can lead so many of you that have come to join us at GatherVerse.live. Thank you. And the various social streams that you're meeting at Facebook or Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and more, Blue Sky, that can lead and hopefully spark an inspiration for you or your colleagues who you're sitting watching this with and sharing these moments with together, that would spark an inspiration to innovate humanely with the consideration per this special GatherVerse occasion that when we innovate under the vestiges or auspices of medical innovation, that we must take the consideration that it's not sufficient just for women in particular to use these tools, but so much more importantly, to build them. We're set to launch our first global roundtable. We have an assortment of various speakers with us, leaders, if you will, that have come to join us for this very special kickoff. I started off with this speaking about my mother. She's in my heart and very alive to this day, and I'm thankful. But when I think about with a little bit of time that each of us get to contribute, for me, I wonder if there's a thing that we could innovate that could prevent someone else from experiencing such fate. Perhaps we'll find this out together. May our gather be well. Greetings and welcome to each of you. We'd ask that each of you mute your mics, please, as I'll be your moderator for this very special roundtable session. We're so happy to see each of you that have come to join us here for this roundtable discussion on women's health now. Panelists, before we begin, a few things. Audience, a few things. We'll be asking questions that are not only on the screen, but we will be going impromptu and at times a rapid fire succession, and we will be jumping around. There's much to unpack, and there's much to arrive to, and we want to be able to extract as much as we can, especially from each of you whom we've had the pleasure of having you before, and we know your capabilities and things that you have to share and say. And with that said, I'd like to call on each of you to briefly let us know who you are, what you're presently doing in this world, and more importantly, for GatherVerse, what inspired you to be here today? Chantel, permit us to begin with you.
Christopher, always good to be back here. So I have a question for the ladies. What if you could choose to be sexy instead of waiting to be chosen? You see, I work with women who have been everything to everyone for so long that they've spent years believing that they don't really matter. And unlike most coaches, I don't just give strategy. I help women architect the confidence that they've forgotten that they even had. I've written a book on breaking the chains of shame, and the women that I've worked with have built the confidence to be able to say yes to their desires. Now, to me, that's the sexiest thing you can do for yourself. Why I've decided to be here at the GatherVerse event today, much like Christopher, I don't have a personal link to women's health were, but I have studied so much about women, and we are different. Yes, we're human, but we are different. Our physiology is different. And I really think we need to shine a light on it. And I'm really, really glad to be able to start this conversation. Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you so much, Chantel, and thank you for sharing from this lens perspective. We're very happy to have you once again. Anisha, welcome.
Hi, Christopher. It's good to be back here. I am from Texas and I work in tech as a big data engineer. And what motivated me to be part of this panel is I did lose someone, like as you shared your story, I did lose someone who was a mother figure to me, to a lot of problems. And it was few years back, and I don't really talk about it publicly as well because it left a hole in my heart. And I think it's related to a lot of is related to physical health and not being treated properly, and also mental health. So I think like spreading awareness about like women's health and how women and men are completely different, like their bodies are completely different, and everything should be like spread across everyone, and like spread across more everywhere, everyone in the world. So I think that's another reason that I wanted to be a part of this panel.
Thank you for sharing that, Anisha, and our condolences to that person that was special to you and well in safekeepings as well. We're very happy to have you
Thank
return
you.
to us once again. Dr. Good, welcome.
Hi, Christopher. Thanks for the invitation. I am the founder of Good Body, Good Brain, because the brain is carried around by the body, and we have to take really good care of it because we want to take really good care of our brain, and we want to take good care of our brain for a very, very long time. I deal with women very much like Chantel who don't believe they're worthy enough of their own self care because they've been giving so much that their cup is totally empty. And there's a huge gender bias in our medical system today, especially among autoimmune diseases, which I hope to bring out a little bit further. And it's very much related to the X chromosome. So I'm looking forward to all the panelists and everything we have to share today.
Thank you, Dr. Good, for sharing that perspective. And we are certainly happy to have you join us again for this very special roundtable and summit. Dr. Garcia.
Good evening, actually from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I am from the US, from Florida, but I have been traveling extensively the last 7 or 8 months all over Southeast Asia, representing my global consulting company called SoulScript Global. Unlike the other ladies, thank you for the confidence. Thank you for your journey share. And Dr. Sally Good, looking forward to what you have to share. I'm very strong on advocacy, having led 54 congressional advocacy meetings in Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill, influencing the change of laws such as ending child marriage laws, representing UNICEF. I've met with governments, parliaments, first ladies, you name it, as part of this consultancy. And I'm just looking forward to learning from each of you. I've learned to redefine what empowerment truly is, because in the world of women, it became so oversaturated with women empowerment that really offered no solutions other than social gatherings. So being with like-minded, very powerful, authentic women like yourself, ready to drive in solutions that are effective and long-lasting, is why I'm here tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. We're very happy to have you join us. Shall we begin? I want to start off not with the question that's on the screen, but the one that's sitting here in my heart. We talk about wellness, we talk about medical technology. It's ubiquitous, it's around the world. There's different practices, there's Eastern, Western, and more. There are so many different practices of medicine, known and unknown to all of us. And from our various small corners of the world, we have been raised up in various ecosystems to have and draw to an appreciation on how wellness has impacted us personally and how we've seen it affect others, whether it's the lack of wellness and opportunity for others, maybe it's a lack of accessibility, maybe it is in systems that are highly progressive or very effective. We've seen all different types of technology as we've grown in generational succession, and we've heard stories from our elders on how it was for them to visit that room or to visit those rooms, whether having surgery in various types of ways that we can imagine being in today. I won't get too descriptive, and perhaps someone else will. But saying all that to say is that medicine, the study therein, and wellness and health, we have a different perspective on that here in 2026, I believe, just from your introductions. And Dr. Good, I want to kick off with you. I want you to pick up where you left off. I hear the words about X chromosome and Y chromosome, but more so, I want you to briefly express to us, what is the study of medicine and the impact of women today for you? And Chantel, Anisha, Dr. Garcia, we'll be calling on you very soon and right around the corner. Please, briefly, Dr. Good, could you share?
Yes, I started out as a medical technology in the field of immunohematology in a hospital. And I took a lot of classes with med students. They were given a very didactic, structured type of thing. Oh, the nutrition, maybe 8 or 9 weeks. You ask a doctor how they would treat diabetes now, you'd have to go to a diabetes specialist, because there's just the body of knowledge have gotten so large, and the amount of time that MDs have to incorporate that into their practice, because they're just running from patient to patient to patient, driven by insurance concerns, insurance demands. So medicine as what we would like for it to be, particularly for women. And I used to think going to a woman doctor would solve that problem, but it hasn't. I've actually been treated poorly by women doctors more so than men doctors. And I don't know what that bias is. Maybe they have a certain constraint put on them. But I am fortunate that in my practice, I am found a group of women only radiologists who only read breast tissue. And they do it for my local hospital. And they have consults with every patient after they have their mammography and their breast wellness thing. And it is a huge innovation. So we're so behind, Christopher. Over here, emergent technology, we're up here in the stars. Medicine as we know it, even the docs that are 35, 40 years old are so behind in the possibility of what's there. And I'll talk about X a little bit more. It's a little geeky. I love geeky.
We'll take geeky as it comes, and come as you are. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Good. Audience, we think about the study and the expression and all the types of NGOs and nonprofit organizations that have been dedicated towards women's breast cancer, and about the study of women's breast and the health therein. And to Dr. Good's point, there is such a dichotomy when we look at the advances of technology. You would think that we've been able to complement that in the advances of study in medicine when it comes to the human body anatomically. But we have much to go, don't we? I think about this, Anisha, when we think about what Dr. Good has expressed when it comes to available for those practitioners that are getting together. They're huddled up in small rooms to this day, finding ways to study and exploration. I was told that there's some 9,500 medical journals that come out per day, and of which 2,500 is studied and advanced and written specifically for cancer studies. We think about the opportunity for prevention. We have all experienced, I believe at this point, each of us, someone close in our lives, or people that we at least know that have been impacted by the passing away of our loved ones, and perhaps strangers that we see on television. And Nisha, share with us, because the direction that you took this, when that led you to this inspirational opportunity to join us, I'd like to know, what is your present and most important focus when it comes to health and the impact of women today?
So I think the healthcare system right now, like most of the research that is ongoing in healthcare, is based on some standardized like model, which is mostly male-centric research, clinical research that I'll say. and not a lot of focus is put into research which is more woman centric. And I think that is one of the leading problems, like the disconnect between like how women's diseases are treated. For example, there are certain like as I think Sally mentioned, autoimmune diseases, like those are not really treated properly, because the healthcare system that we have in the current society is based on a certain standardized model, because and it follows a certain pattern. But when it comes to women's health, you really need to study how women changes over the years, because every phase for a woman is different. And like when a woman is like a baby and toddler and puberty, like young adult, and also like during the early adult stages and after menopause. So there's a lot of stages which actually a woman faces throughout her life, and I think everything should be taken into account when healthcare systems are built. I mean, that's one of the things I feel there's a huge disconnect between the healthcare system and how women are treated in today's world.
I find that fascinating on a number of different fronts. To take you, Anisha, and I will have a follow-up with you just briefly, and Chantel, right around the corner, as well as with you, Dr. Garcia. You're coming from the great state of Texas, I believe. And in Texas, there is great contributions when it's contributed, especially in Houston, to medical exploration. But we also know that there's various rules and statutes, ordinances, and covenants that change it from very state to state, which it is what it is. And we won't go too political, if you will, today, but feel free. We'll take that as well. But we think about that, and you talked about the successive growth of a child, even from the embryonic stage, right, from fetal position, even before this precious child leaves their mother's womb. And we think about all the different areas and the necessary steps to be able to understand how modern medicine and preventive care can be able to help them along this journey. Because if we realize it, I just really appreciate this particular summit. Thank you for part of this inspiration. We think about there's a journey that each of us have been on. There is a journey of survivability every single moment of the day, when we, not just when we come from our mother's womb, but while we're still yet in it. I sit there and think about the magnitude of that, Anisha, and it really just kind of just impressed upon me right now with you saying that. And so thank you for sharing that, and we'll have more to share. And then Chantel, we will come to you in a moment with something. Dr. Garcia, what are your thoughts on that, with what was just expressed? And also give us what it is that you find the most important focal point for you when it comes to health and the impact of women.
So, two parts to this. I noticed and I've observed, right? You talked about your personal loss with your mother. My mother passed away in 2005. And that is when I truly realized the breakdown in medical systems in the United States. There's a lot of bureaucratic red tape that she had to prove to say that she really was in stage 4 cancer. And at that time, back before she was diagnosed, holistic care, anything organic, was unheard of. It was more like a cushy lifestyle. And yet the healing was found in not what the traditional or scientific medicine cure was being provided. Rather than that's where probably inherited from, she became her own patient advocate because of those bureaucratic red tapes. Right. And she proved, the first time she was diagnosed, they told her she had less than 6 months to live, stage 4 cancer. And my mother was a very strong woman of faith. So she told the doctor, thank you, but no thank you, because I'm on God's time, not yours. And decided to do medical research on her own, managed to reverse the cancer with no chemo from stage 4 to 0, lived another 8 years. And then when it did come back, it was a brain tumor. And at that point, it was too late. But during that 8 years, she basically lived her purpose. So she died knowing that she's fulfilled whatever God had told her to do. Right. And so fast forward. Today, I've traveled, as I said, extensively, almost, I would just say close to almost a year. I'll just say 9 months conservatively in Southeast Asia. And yet there's such a disparity between Western hospitals and how they treat patients. And over here in Malaysia, I've been to Thailand, I've even been to the Philippines, and the affordability of healthcare. Let's start with that. With no insurance, you can get a pair of eyeglasses, get your eyes checked, and your prescription basically for $27 or $30 equivalent in the Philippines. Over here in Malaysia, and this I was inviting Christopher, I was like, come join me in Thailand, come join me in Malaysia, right? Here in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, another major hub city, you can get a full head to toe executive checkup. They run every single test possible for $300 equivalent. And so a lot of expats and foreigners fly into Kuala Lumpur because of the fact that they can get a full body, everything you can think of, put you in a nice hotel like the Ritz-Carlton on top of that as you wait for your appointment. But the handle that they have of truly, it's like old school doctor. Do you remember when everybody used to carry a medical bag and visited patients home? They have that type of white glove handling for everybody that they actually care. Then I go back to our Western, America's supposed to be, and this is nothing political, the top of the game. But yet we've all had personal experiences of even trying to get a clinical visit and how rushed you are. So today the disparity is still this. Women have to prove that they're really suffering. So instead of proactive and prevention, they still have us prove, what are you feeling? The 10 million questions that we have to answer, because we're emotional based creatures. So for whatever it is that there is a disparity, it's prove me you're sick and prove me you're not feeling good. That is the current prevalent conditions. Even I've come across even some other situations in other countries, but the prove us.
It's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Garcia. We tend to think, and I do believe here, and as I sit here in Silicon Valley, that our medicine we feel is exceptional, so long as you can afford it. But
Yes.
from the places that I've been around the world, I've also come to appreciate that there's great exception and there's a great quality, and in some regards, humanely better treatment on how you're approached and how people and humans are approached when it comes to medicine. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Garcia. We'll have more to get to. And jumping to the other side of the moon here, Chantel, we began with your side of things on sexiness and intimacy, which are very important aspects of what we look at when it comes to wellness. Can you draw out for us what is the focal point of wellness for you and what you're looking at here presently in 2026 March?
Christopher, you know me, I always like going a little bit contrary, and perhaps not where we expect to go. So I'm going to really pick up on something that Dr. Garcia said. We've all heard the stories of women and people who have, quote, healed themselves. And I really think if we take a step back and we look at society and technology, you spoke about the advancement of technology, the advancement of medicine. And it's no secret that knowledge is just growing every single day. We're in this barrage of knowledge all the time.
Sure.
Here's the thing, when you're the individual, when you're the patient, we've got to start learning to take a holistic approach, because this doctor is going to give one diagnosis, the specialist is going to give another regime, your friend is going to give more advice. And what's happening again and again and again, and I see it on social media, is we are so disempowered. We throw our hands up and we say, what do I do? And we're looking for strategies all the time. But what we as women need to learn to do is to step into the fullness of who we are, to go within. We have the intuition. We have the answers. We have the wisdom of women from our ancestral lines. This is our gift. We have to learn to settle into what is best for me right now. And I think this is what Dr. Garcia's mum did in her experience, and what so many women have done. And the more knowledge proliferates, the more I believe women need to go back to that place of, who am I? What is best for me right now? So that's my perspective.
Chantel, where does that courage come from?
I've got a PhD in the School of Life, my friend. I've walked some hard roads.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for sharing, Chantel. We'll be back with you in just a moment. I think about the words thus far that have been expressed in spoken audience. It struck me in our first Women's Health Summit in 2025, the various perspectives and how powerful these testimonies, if you will, that have been shared. I feel equally the same already thus far, if we've barely just begun, but as quick as it comes, as quick as it goes. I think about something, Dr. Good, think about the Hippocratic Oath that each practitioner and doctor takes, if you will, around the world, and the sanctity of it therein. But I think about how uncomplimented that is when it comes to engineers, Anisha, and the responsibility that we have when it comes to what we innovated, what we built for our practitioners that are under the guise, if you will, of the Hippocratic Oath. I want to start with you, Dr. Good, briefly, and then to Anisha briefly on this particular twin subject of our engineers or technologists, from your viewpoint, Dr. Good, are we doing enough, and is there enough alignment with practitioners of the world when it comes to hyperscale of innovation itself?
Well, I fully believe that AI is going to find the cure for cancer, for diabetes, and for ever other major illnesses in the world. I believe it already exists. I believe that there are keepers of the secrets that don't want them to be escaped, because diabetes is the number one pharma industry in America. We are forcing people to eat poor quality foods. If we compare our foods to Europe, many of them have been banned that we eat, some people on a daily basis, produce, et cetera, et cetera. So engineering, I think engineering might be the actual emergent technology, might actually save ourselves from ourselves. But it's going to take a lot of education, and it's going to take a lot of, and I'll ditto to Chanel, it's going to take some boldness on the part of women to step forward and realize that people in white coats are not priests, are not any better than we are, and we know our bodies more than anybody else. In 06, I was diagnosed with MS, and for 5 years, I was on a daily shot of Copaxone, which was about $2,000 a month. After 5 years, I went to my neurologist and I said, I'm not getting any worse. In fact, I'm getting pretty much better. I'm doing yoga. Nothing's happened to my brain. I want to do a full MRI scan, and I'll make a deal with you. If I don't have any flares in my brain or in my spine, I stop all this nonsense. He says, deal. I did the MRI, not a single spot, no flare in my brain or my whole nervous system. So I stopped the Copaxone. That's been 25, 30 years ago. Here I am, still thinking well, still moving well. And what was that? He believes it was a compressed nerve that they couldn't figure out what it was. And MS was just a diagnosis that was most convenient at the time. And with physical therapy, I got better. So we know our bodies, and but we have to be bold. And that made me realize I have to step up to the plate, and I have to be adamant to the point of being the word bitchy to get what I need from medicine these days.
Well, we're so happy and glad that you're joining us here today in 2026 from your experiences from 20 to 30 some odd years ago. Dr. Good, you touched on something that's very poignant and rather apropos for this discussion. Anisha, please bear with us. We'll be there in just a second. As a quick follow-up, Dr. Good, we talk about big pharmaceutical and nutraceutical, if you will, but we also talk about machines, but as the intimacy that Chantel just spoke about, to know your own body and not to be completely reliant on the physician. And I do believe that's important for many reasons, but to know that, I hear that, but yet I wonder, even based on an expression of yours, where does the machine play the role in this dance, this delicate dance between the practitioner, between the patient, and then the human heart?
Well, as you see, as machines become more knowledgeable of who we are as humans. And even Amadeus just recently said he's not sure that Claude actually might have some degree of consciousness. He's not sure about it. But what I believe is that we can use the machine, particularly AI. We already have programs that research the proper cancer treatment for given diagnoses because it searches the entire database of the world. And before, oncologists used to sit for hours trying to find and research. Now we've got that at our fingertips. It's going to give us more information faster and better. And I think that the technology of detection from an AI and an engineering joined, talking about hardware plus software plus visioning bodies on a cellular level. I'm not talking about just big structures. I'm talking about going down to the mitochondria and looking at what things are really happening there and giving us more information of how we can do our own self-repair.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Good. We'll be back there in a moment to be able to meet with you on the cellular level and to be able to explore perhaps deeper artificial mitochondria, if this is where we might be headed. I sit here and think about this in each of the words that have been expressed thus far. And with you, I ask as a fellow technologist, and there's other technologists that are in and woven throughout this summit, if you will. And all of us have some type of level of intimacy with technology today, whether we care for or whether we choose to or not. But this one squarely goes at the dichotomous layer when we asked Dr. Good about the Hippocratic Oath, the very intimate oath that practitioners make in their lives. I know that my mother, she was a nurse, and all of my grandmothers, and I was raised by nurses, if you will, and in such a very different way, and doctors, if you will. I think about, Anisha, the responsibility and an inherent responsibility of the technologist, especially with this type of technology that is interacting with us. It sees, has conversations with us, in some ways reads our disposition and we read it, and it turns around and believes that it itself has a disposition. And as Dr. Good just mentioned, Adira Amade now doesn't know if Claude Opus is conscious or not. He can't answer that. I've often asked, what happens when the technology becomes more advanced than a technologist? And now that's come to pass. Anisha, what's the inherent responsibility that you find that engineers throughout the world have in this present modern time, an era of hyperscale, especially at the intersection of health?
So, as a person who works in AI and technology, and also someone who is also interested in like biological research, I feel like, yeah, emerging technologies have played a good role in like advancing biological research when it comes to certain areas like drug discovery and all those areas. But there are certain parts which I feel has not been like developed a lot. For example, as women, we understand our own bodies, and anyone, like even men, they understand their own bodies. But when you actually talk to AI, like when you talk to an AI in general, and you're asking them, oh, I have this and this going on in my body, and these are my symptoms, like there is a chance of misdiagnosis by the AI. So I think and all of the facts that, for example, if you're talking to chat gpt, or you're talking to Claude, or any other LLM, right? And you are telling the LLM that, okay, these are the symptoms that I am facing, and instead of going to the doctor, and what should I do in order to treat those, sometimes it might misdiagnose, and that misdiagnosis can cause a lot of issues in the future, and it might be fatal also. So I think as technologists, we should also understand that whatever like outputs that the AI or any kind of AI tool is providing has to be fact checked a lot of times before you actually showcase that to the public, because that can lead to a lot of errors. And in technology, you like when it comes to technology apart from healthcare, it's like it is a lot more less risky. But when it comes to health and diagnosis of certain illnesses or symptoms, I think there is always a chance of mixed diagnosis, and something leads to something, and you end up believing in something which you're not supposed to believe. So I feel as people who are in technology, there's a huge responsibility on them to understand that whatever the output is given by AI is not completely fact checked. I mean, yeah, 80% is fact checked, but what about the rest 20%? So that has to be fact checked as well, because a lot of problems can arise from that.
Let's go a little bit further up the mountain, Anisha, and this is right back at you. As much as Dr. Good talked about the cellular level and the mitochondria, let's go into the engineering development technical level. Are we ready, from your lens perspective, as someone that works in this, in your daily given doings of what you do in your labors, when it comes to AI innovation? Are we ready to invite that level of intimacy that Chantel has brought to us today when it comes to our own bodies? Are we ready to reveal that level of intimacy to these machines, knowing that there are things that it does get wrong, but there are many things it does get right? Is the world ready for this level of intimacy? Because ChatGPT today, we're dealing with language models and we're typing on screens and devices, desktop labs, tablets, and laptops, if you will. But now that we're getting further into not just interacting and typing on screens, but sitting and having whole, full conversations, relationships with the elongated, long extended memory, and then thinking about hyper realistic immersive simulations or real time augmented projections, looking and staring at these machines in anatomical structure one to another. Are we ready for this level of intimacy of reveal when it comes to our health, our bodies?
Um, on a personal level, I don't think so, because I would not trust an AI with my personal health issues instead of going to the doctor, because a doctor has studied through years of experience, has years of experience. Also, like a chat GPT or a language model cannot just overtake a human experience of, like, practical experience of a doctor. So I feel we are ready, but not ready. I think we are like 20% to 30% there. But personally, I wouldn't trust a language model with my personal health issues. I would rather go to a doctor and tell them that these are my health issues that I'm facing, rather than talking to a chat GPT or a language model about my health issues.
Are you more comfortable with that doctor using AI in her or his tool set?
Yeah, that's another difference. So for example, if I go to a doctor and the doctor combines his or her practical knowledge with the knowledge of an AI, that is much more like practical, I feel, because you are combining your practical knowledge, like, which you have gained over the years, with the knowledge of an AI. So it's not just only one siloed knowledge. It's like practical knowledge that you gained over the years after seeing multiple patients, and then you're combining that knowledge with the knowledge for an, like, LLM output. So I think that is much more like uh, trustworthy, I feel, rather than just trusting an AI.
And Chantel, are you comfortable with this intimacy of the relationship between machine and human and where we're finding it today here in 2026?
Not at all. Not at all. Because I think it's outsourcing our own wisdom. And, if I look at this panel, we are fortunate women. But let's not forget the woman in the street. Let's not forget the woman who feels like she doesn't have options, who feels like she can't afford to go to a doctor and she's forced to let ChatGPT diagnose, right? And this is what's happening. What about if we strengthen that woman holistically and we give her access to the wisdom that she already has access to deep within her? What about if we strengthen that as opposed to strengthen her ties to the machine? Just a thought.
It's very interesting
It's
that
very interesting.
relationship between the patient and the doctor today still has more work to be done, still has more trek to give, still has more access to give. Some people don't enjoy the experiences of what Dr. Garcia talked about, but what she's experiencing throughout her tour in Asia now, with the decency that's placed in these specific countries and the lack of therein in so many other different cities around the world. I sit there and think about that, Chantal. All of a sudden, people haven't even began to appreciate the relationship with the doctor with the heartbeat. And now we may be propagated to be able to have a relationship with the doctor without one. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Garcia, as you find yourself through the vestiges of Southeast Asia and throughout these very beautiful lands that many of us have never been to and traveled to, but you find yourself there. And are you a bit surprised with the level of decency compared to that which you may not have experienced or that you see other people not experiencing in this very country, here in the great state or the great country of the United
Absolutely.
States?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, the dentist that I went to see here, that they only charge $15 for a full teeth cleaning with x-rays, and another $15 for a filling. And I said, my goodness. And the bedside manners, as we call it back in those old days, the professionalism and the care and the follow-up. And I said, but that's because they're still focused on patient care relationships. And that is a huge difference that I've seen in Southeast Asian countries. Despite even the modern day technology, it boiled down to one on one relationships. And I'm going to take it to what is the current mental health crisis, especially facing our young generations. I know that Christopher and I had conversations about this because that's one of the things that I'm addressing at different universities right now is this. 70% of Gen Z would rather have a committed relationship with AI than humans. That doesn't even touch on any medical, but that is what the Gen Zs are now wanting, right? And mental health crisis is now even on the rise. We're not even talking about what we're talking about today. That is another wave or tsunami of what is about to hit. The disconnection of relationships, the disconnection of communication, the disconnection of family foundations. It is not the same. In fact, in my recent talk with the University of Technology in Cambodia, just about a week and a half ago, and I covered about 8 classes in 2 days, I've asked the students, how many of you have best friends? And in an average class size of 60, only 2 people raised their hand. And I remember in my high school in Unit 2, yes, Chantel, right? 2 people. And I said, okay, how many of you have close friends? Nobody raised their hands. These are the Gen Zs. And I said, how many of you still have parents? And they just kind of started laughing and raised their hand. But this is becoming more and more epidemic as we speak. So when I see, yes, the older generation, let's say millennials, Gen X, baby boomers, when we do go to the clinics here, even in Southeast Asia, it's still that patient care. And that's what people, you've got very low cost medical, checkups and the care, but it's the relationships that's honored in the different countries here in Asia. But then on the other side, as technology grows, right, we have the other epidemic that's going to be a pandemic when it hits the mental health crisis because the new generation do not have a relationship with each other anymore. So this is, more and more, there's work to be done, ladies, in so many sectors that this is the true calling for impactful collaboration. True collaboration, not competition anymore. There's no choose your lane anymore, especially with what's about to happen in the next 2 years. We need to truly put our gifts together. We really need to put our calling together and work in teams. Because if AI is, it's evolving as we speak, then humans, we were still given our own digital imprint that can never be duplicated, called our fingerprint in our brains, right? Is that this is now the call for all women in all sectors to really find each other, form groups of, basically be solutions driven and form those groups. This is no longer the motivational, inspirational era.
We thank you, Dr. Garcia, for your words of expression and your admonishment. I sit here under the sound of each of your voices today at this 41st Global Summit, Dr. Good. I sit here and listen to these words, Chantel. I listen to these expressions, Anisha. And Dr. Good, I sit here and listen at this 41st Global Summit. You can imagine we've had thousands of speakers. We've had hundreds of roundtables and firesides and talks. And I think about the immensity and the magnitude of what Dr. Garcia just told us about the ratio and the comparison of the relationship between human and machine. And I sit here and I say to myself, have we already become too close to these machines? And they're at their lowliest state of what they are today, and there'll be nothing as we know them by this time next year, let alone within months as we look at the rapid progress that we're seeing in these machines. I sit here and think about that. But what I also am led to appreciation of many things of what Dr. Garcia said, including the need for us to arrive together. We shouldn't have to wait for nonprofit dollars and NGOs to be able to take up the chalice and to take up the mantle of impact when it comes to what these technologies are doing to us. Heart to heart, group to group, as Dr. Good had already expressed, that there's a group of women that are sitting here studying and the practitioners when it comes to women's breast, if you will, and the exploration therein. And they're sitting here, and I don't think that they needed a nonprofit budget and they needed some big appetite of desire for someone to fund an initiative as opposed to using what their God-given talents were, if you will, to go and do something about it. I sit here and think about the need for community development, which is one of our GatherVerse standards, and I just don't think that we have considered the enormity of the challenge that has arisen. And the thing is, this is so persistent of a technology. I believe that once many people understand the magnitude of which is upon us, in many ways, Dr. Good, to make change, I do believe that it will be too late. If there's never been more of an important time for these type of discussions, then I don't know when. Dr. Good, can you give us more on that, of the opportunity of what we stand to face when those women that you know and that you're part of get together and sit there and huddle over, looking and bearing over paper an expression for solution?
Two thoughts. First of all, the seasons of the life of women that Anisha brought up, we're all in different seasons. And different seasons have different challenges and different ways of working with our bodies, etc. What we're facing, not only with the Gen Zs, is the other end of that spectrum. We have the biggest aging population that we've ever seen in America, and it is coming fast. We have so many more people who are so ill, and I'm not just talking about dementia and all the strokes and high blood pressure and diabetes, that our healthcare system is going to be so overloaded that we've got coming and we've got people going. You know, I work in geropsych. One day a week, I volunteer in nursing homes and I do assessments for Medicaid. So I get to see the progression of when I first meet someone to a year later, what happens when they're put in a nursing home, they're confined to a wheelchair, they have a little socialization, they're eating that food, and I mean that food that has little, I mean, it has some nutrition, but it doesn't look pretty, it doesn't look nice. All the things that degrade. And I'll talk about the dignity of care and the dignity of life. There are CNAs, there are aides who've been doing this job for 25 years, and they love their patients. They love them. But there's only so much you can do. So what is going to happen when we reach, we're getting ready to reach this apex that's going to go like that. We've got about 7 to 10 years before we reach that point when Gen Z no longer has relationships, and our adult population are all needing incredible amount of health care. I'm not sure if our HHS secretary at 71 can save us, but he's trying his best. He's trying to get us to eat better. He's trying to get us to exercise. He's trying to get us to do those things. How can technology, the emergent technology, how can it help us with, first of all, learning about self-care, education? We've got great apps. Christopher Brown, we've got the Peace app, PeaceVerse, we've got that. We can be learning self-care. We've got great apps for that. But it takes self-determination to turn the machine on and actually interact with it and say, yes, I need to practice self-care. Yes, I need to do that. And all that comes from inside, from the core, from the intuition. And just like Chantel says, how do we reach those women that are intersectional, that are of color, that have never had good health care? They've never seen good health care modeled. Their parents have never had it. They're eating the most bare minimum. They're doing drive-throughs. Their whole world is fast food. How are you going to help those women with emergent technology? How are you going to get them to realize that health is the only thing that we can help preserve to have a good, long, vital life? Here we are.
I sit here and think about, and thank you for sharing that, Dr. Good and Anisha. I sit here and think about the necessity for more human innovators. Is this the hour for such time? Is this the hour where we need to see more human innovation and more human impact of scale, less than machines? I think we're in desperate need of a renaissance, if you will. I'll stray away from the word revolution, but of a renaissance of innovators that are building and doing heartfelt work, heartfelt innovation, entrepreneurs that see the other ethical imbalance and to have a need to innovate, not from a place of driven high profit, which it's fine to raise and drive capital. I work with such entrepreneurs every day, but more work towards the heart that may not be as financially rewarding, but can be far more sustaining. Are we heading into that necessity of time, Anisha, from what you're looking at when it comes to innovation and those of us that work and build and work with these machines? Is this needed now?
It is needed, but also like as everyone mentioned that along with the human interception, I think there's a need to understand people better, like understand the relationships. Like also another aspect that I'd like to touch upon is like the mental health, because in today's world I think mental health also affects physical health. Like when you are down mentally, you are not in a good mental place, it affects your physical health, and it might lead to a lot of like binge eating, and it might lead to like a lot of eating disorders. So I think those factors need to be taken into account when it comes to human innovation, and not just focus on like some created models, right? Like certain, for example, people of color, like women of color, and there's a lot of cultural stereotypes. Like I am from India, and where I come from, there's a lot of cultural stereotypes across like women's health, because uh, a lot of the times women are not made to speak up, they don't really speak up. For example, when you actually go through after a person gives birth, you go through postpartum, and certain times postpartum depression causes a lot of mental health issues and physical health issues as well. And where I am from, it's not like culturally acceptable to actually speak about mental health issues. But I would say that with a lot of AI and everything, it is changing. Like the society is changing there as well. As per Western culture, it is actually much more advancing right now. But I would say a lot of innovation is still important, and a lot of focus has
Okay.
comes to mental health, physical health, and also other innovations in terms of complete healthcare, I'd say.
Thank you, Anisha, for addressing that. Mental health has been so huge with GatherVerse. It was really our second focus summit that we had. I remember when we started GatherVerse, we went with over 10,000 attendees, had 2 months to put together what is now GatherVerse. And the very next summit, I thought it prudent to be able to have a mental wellness summit where other people thought that we should talk more about technology. And I think about the relationship and the impact of technology, as so many people have expressed, each of you have expressed. And I just realized then, as we realize now, the impact that technology, as our next roundtable will heavily get into, the impact of technology and has on our mental wellness, our physiology, our physical health, and even our spiritual health, at least from Mindland's perspective. Chantel, we think about this, and we're going to end with each of you giving a very brief moment, and then we have another roundtable to ascend to. I sit here and think about, coming back to what we talked about, that we must know our own selves. And when we find this exploration of coming to better understand our own bodies, our own health, will that lead us to an opportunity to relate to one another even better? What are the benefits of that, Chantal? Let's leave it to the benefits of that.
Ultimately, Christopher, I think we've got to this interplay with human and technology is very much an outsourcing of responsibility. And for me, it's a rallying call to take personal responsibility once again. We are human. We will always be human, and human created the machine. Let's not forget that. We are the masters. Um, so when it comes to taking responsibility for our health, for our lives, for our well-being, for everything that we do in this life, I
Sure.
like to use a ball analogy, right? So we all talk about how we juggle all these balls, and we've got all these balls up in the air at any given time. The question is it a rubber ball or is it a glass ball? Your health is a glass ball. Your work is a rubber ball. It can bounce back. But your health, if you drop it, can it bounce back? That is the priority. That is the question we've got to ask ourselves as women. Are we juggling with glass balls? And how do we start shifting our priorities?
Thank you very much, Chantel, for those enlightening and deep heartening words. Dr. Garcia, in our final closing seconds that we have here, and then Dr. Good, and then we'll close it with you, Dr. Anisha. Dr. Garcia, how do we bring more decency to this world? And how do you take what you're experiencing in Asia right now and bring that to the world?
Thank you for that beautiful question, Christopher. As we come into close, I always say this on global stages, no matter what part of the continent God throws me in at this point. As women, we birth nations, women raise nations, and women move nations. There's no amount of technology that can duplicate the very DNA that births and raises children, and also the courage we all have. Forget about multitasking, the multi responsibilities that a woman can juggle, AI cannot compete with, especially when you put the human emotion and relationship as our core, because this is where we thrive in as women. It's
Sure.
in our inner relationships, interrelationships, and outer relationships. That is what makes us all successful. So do not forget the humanity portion of any different handling, that if we can just go back to the very core of Corinthians, what is love? Love is kind, love is patient, and just put your name there. Is Christopher loving? Is Christopher patient? Is he kind? Does he not boast? If we go back to the very essence of that, we're going to continue to thrive. And we can get the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas and the Gen Betas and all the ABCs that follows after that, as long as we do not lose our own value that God inherently had put on us.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. We're so very happy and very joyous, rather, to share stage with you today. And in the final closing seconds here, Dr. Good, we talked about so much. We talked about machines. We talked about interhealth. We've talked about decency. We've talked about engineering and scale. With all the culmination of that, from your lens perspective of being a practitioner for decades, what is it that you would have us to close out with for these brief moments?
I want to pick up on you talking about the impact of women having babies within their bodies, of growing a human. Within that girl baby are ovaries, are seeds. That girl baby, when she's born, those seeds will become more babies, both girl and boy. They all carry them within them. So each mother carries almost their grandchildren within their bodies. And when we start to think about that, we are the only creatures that can create humanity in that way, that we are so connected hormonally to our environment. Just the intuition that women have, the spider sense that we have, the things that Chantel has been talking about, how we are so connected to our environment, both inside and outside, that we can actually become teachers. We can teach AI what it means to be human. And AI is going to have to learn. It's learning now.
Sure.
But we want them to be taught what it means to be human by good humans, by people who have the best intentions, by people who want everyone to win and everyone to succeed. And how do we gather that up so that the bad actors don't get to hop in? So, good intentions. God did not give us the spirit of fear, but the spirit of power, love, and a sound mind.
Thank you for sharing these intimate expressions and professional expressions, Dr. Good. We're very thankful for them. And in closing here, Anisha, we talked about that journey of that embryonic, that fetal, that baby, that child coming forth, and you help bring that to surface. We talk about this journey to where we find all of ourselves in adulthood, if you will. When we look at this, and we're here in 2026, we're still surviving. What do you believe in your heart as an engineer with everything that you're doing of the small contribution that Anisha will make based on what you've heard today? What do you believe your next steps should be and that you hope for to be when it comes to contributing towards this?
As I mentioned, one of the things that I wanted to do and want to do still, like, is bring awareness about like how a woman's body and mind is different from a man's body, and like the physiology in general is very different from a man. So I think that has to be like made aware in the society, that how a man thinks versus a woman thinks, and like in terms of like physical development as well, like as we go through the stages, like as I think Dr. Good and Dr. Garcia mentioned, there's a lot of like women hold that power, and like women are born with the eggs, right? And it's like grandmothers hold that, like you actually are born with those. So I think that has to be made aware, that how much power you actually hold and how much your body changes from one stage to another stage. uh, I would like to make a lot of people aware of that, because not a lot of people are aware. I feel like a lot of things are lacking. And when it comes to technology, you can actually integrate that into technology, like maybe build something which will create more awareness in society. I mean, it's not necessarily like just boast about like what is what, but just an app which can actually you can install on your devices, and it can help you understand a woman's body better, a woman's mind better, and how a woman thinks versus how a man thinks. So I think that is another step I would like to take in the coming future.
Think of you, each of you leaders, women, in the presence of you, I am yet a student. We've gained so much. Audience, take time to follow them, to join them, not just to see, but to work with, to build with, and to hopefully be inspired by. We're preparing for our next GatherVerse roundtable discussion to go further on top of this well met foundation that was just laid before us. Thank you, each of you, and farewell. Our gather was well.
Greetings. Welcome to the second roundtable panel, GatherVerse Women's Health Summit 2026. I would first like to appreciate the first panel that really did quite justice to explain the state of women's health, where we are, where does technology come. On this particular panel, we are going to talk about technology in women's health, what helps and what harms. A lot of deep expressions were expressed during the first panel. And for me, this panel is just a continuum. We're going to answer some of their questions, and we're also going to explore further on this subject on technology. But before we go into that, I'd like to welcome my fellow panelists here to introduce themselves, to tell us who they are and why they were inspired to join us. Now, who do I start with? I will start with you, Stephanie. Tell us who you are, what inspired you to join us. And we will be brief because I believe we have a lot to tackle, and then we'll pass the baton on and we'll conclude the introductions with Kim. Stephanie, over to you.
Stephanie Sylvester, co-founder of Avatar Buddy, and I'm part here to just explore different ways of how to use AI upstream to support the medical and industry and amplify women's health.
Amazing. And we're happy to have you once again. It's always a pleasure to be in your presence. Aliyah, this is not your first time. Please tell us who you are and what inspired you to join us today.
Thank you. So my name is Aliyah Gibbs. For my day job, I am an AI talent strategist for a corporation. So I work on upskilling engineers specifically. But what drew me to this panel specifically is I accidentally started a community. And I say accidentally, but it's really funny. I ended up going viral on Threads when I started speaking towards the nervous system, especially in regards to women's health and how stress shows up for high achieving professionals. And I've noticed in my own journey that I was stressed out. Despite being on these platforms and speaking and living my dreams, I was operating in a state of stress. And so now I'm really committed to seeing how I can leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning to help prove some of the statistics related to stress and how they can impact women's health specifically. So I'm excited to talk about this conversation today. Thank you.
All right. Aliyah, that is inspiring. We want to learn more about this nervous system and what it really intrigued you to even start it and what AI can do about it. Kat, we want to hear from you. Tell us who you are and what inspired you to join us today.
Hi, everybody. Thumbs up if you can hear me.
Yes, perfectly.
Perfectly. Okay, great. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Kat King. I am an Army veteran, and I am also an XR creator and experimental filmmaker. Essentially, what I do is I just build technology, creative technology to help people manage their psychosis. And I also create immersive experiences to help destigmatize psychosis in general.
All right, Kat, I'm looking forward to learn what psychosis is, by the way. So thank you for joining us. You're in the right place. Tanya, this is not your first time. Bring it on. Tell us who you are. Okay, your mic is your mic, kindly.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Hi, Lynn. It is great to be here today. I'm Tanya Kellen. I'm founder and CEO of Kellen Content. We have a film and television and digital division where we create films, television series that are impactful for changing people's lives, transformational content. And then we have an XR immersive division where we look at transformational storytelling to enhance greater mental health and well-being outcomes. And right now we are in the middle of running our first XR innovation micro-credential to train addiction counselors how to bring in XR training tools to help people in their 28-day rehab and also for art therapists.
Wow, that is quite fascinating. We're looking forward to hear that the intersection of XR and the whole well-being. James, over to you. And this is not your first time. You've inspired us with so much of your journey and your stories. But please tell us once again who you are, what inspired you to join us today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me again. I'm really pleased, grateful to be here. So my name is James Welniak, and I am the director of mindfulness and focus with Cup Advisory. It's a new boutique consulting firm that's all about the self and the nervous system. So I've heard that a lot. That's my favorite word. But I'm also more than just a resume. I'm also the male face of screen addiction. Screen addiction recovery, prevention, and transformation, because you're exactly right. It is about the nervous system. And as we move forward in the age of AI, we actually can use technology to heal our nervous system. And that's what my practice is all about. I'm a former consultant, so great to be here. And I'm so proud to be here with the empresses, queens, goddesses. So thank you for welcoming me. I appreciate it.
James, it's always an honor to be in your presence, and the nervous
Oh,
system.
no.
It seems we're going to talk a lot about the nervous system here today. But Kim, tell us who you are and what inspired you to join us today.
So hi, everyone. I'm Kim Nelson Wright. I'm a leadership strategist and founder of K&W Business Advisors, where I work with leaders and organizations to improve how decisions, operations, and people systems actually function inside the complex environments. Much of my work sits at the intersection of leadership, technology, and organizational systems. And I'm especially interested in how emerging technologies are shaping women's health. Because women shouldn't just be the users of these tools. We should be the voices shaping how they're designed, governed, and implemented. And I'm really glad to be a part of this conversation today.
Wow, we are honored to have you as well. And just to echo what you said, I'm going to start us with one, just a statement that was made yesterday when Christopher posted about this summit. And he said, more women should be involved in innovation for their bodies. If women are participants in care, they also should be decision makers in care. We're here to really figure out, are they decision makers? Where are we so far? And what is the role of technology? And my first question would go to you, Kim, and anyone can chime in as well. A lot of concerns were raised, and I still believe our audience have some questions that are raising about technology. But let's look at the positive side. I like starting with the positive side. Why is technology genuinely improving women's health outcomes? Kim, over to you.
Sure. So I think, technology is making the biggest difference where it expands access to care. So telehealth, mental health platforms, and remote monitoring tools, they're all helping women get the support faster, especially in communities where access to providers is historically limited, right? So it's helping women track their patterns in their bodies and advocate for themselves in clinical settings that haven't always taken women's concerns seriously, especially minority and marginalized communities. So where technology works best is when it supports the clinician and the care relationships, but doesn't try to replace them. Technology should help the women feel more informed, more protected, and more supported, definitely not surveilled or anxious or more extractable. So I think we're doing some great things with the technology, but there is a lot of work to be done.
Yes, I agree. Before we even go to the surveillance and data privacy and being replaced, let's just scratch the layer of the benefits of technology in women's health. Who wants to chime in on that as well? Tanya, I see you. Bring it on, bring it on.
Well, I can chime in the remote access. We're working with a number of remote access locations, our 2 locations right now, with unique Maison Pelado, a foundation that is in a remote area. And there's another one called Les Sentiers de Nouveau Jour. So we work across English and French markets, and we're bringing this across North America. What we see is there's a lot of disconnect with building platforms that can provide treatment and care to women, and women generally don't have access. They're always caregivers at home, often with babies. So they're the ones that are having to stay at home, taking the brunt of the stress, having to have the job and come home and take care of families. So they are at a higher level of dealing with stress and anxiety that they're not even talking about. So when we're talking about optimal mental health and optimal well-being, we need to have programs that we can get them at home so that they're going to be very engaged. And the addiction crisis that we're dealing with as a result of anxiety with pills and consuming pills or consuming alcohol or, whatever that is, even, with marijuana being legalized. There's some big problems that are coming up, but there aren't enough services to really, you know, get to women at a good price point. So that's why we are going with addiction counselors that can give treatment at a reduced price point. So not only do we have to democratize access to the technology and make it really easy to use and make it more gamified and fun. For most people, if you ask them if they want to stop drinking or taking pills, there's no other alternative for those people. And then they don't see a path to living a natural, healthy, free life. And so to be able to do that, you have to do it in a new, unique way and get them at home. And with that is where we're going with a 28-day cycle. And then once they come out of recovery, so we can get them in any stage they're at. If they want to get into art therapy, that's a much more very, I would say, a very easy way to get people access, or with social workers or with trained frontline care workers. So we have to think about the way that we're going to deliver technology. And it's not just the technology. We have to think about the training. There's new training involved to train all the frontline care workers to use this new technology effectively. So it's a real holistic approach, and women tend to think in a holistic ecosystem. And that's really what, as women designers, we have to design from the ground up to solve our problems. That if you're not a woman having dealt with the problems in an inclusive design manner, where you're talking to the people that are actually the marginalized people that don't have access to internet, that don't have access to more than a phone sometimes, and how are you going to get that to them? So these are the questions that we're answering, because we do have higher level clientele, and then we have people that are really at risk and at need. And so the technology that we're
Yes.
building must be, so that's my, 2 cents.
Tanya, I'm thinking about what you just said and the training part of it, and getting people to where they are, whether they have access to even the basic gadget, which is a phone. I find that very brilliant. And this is where I drag the thread over to you, James, because I saw you nodding. I know you've dealt with addiction issues. But I just want to hear from you, and what is your lens on this particular subject?
Yeah, thank you. So for improving women's health, I'm not a woman, I'm a cis male. So hopefully that's obvious. But what I would say is that when you talk about the mind, the body, and the spirit, and so when you talk about when I go out and I see a young mother that's got 2 kids struggling, and she has her phone and she's clearly distracted. And so when technology can actually reduce down these distractions, actually help you organize your life better, actually give access to more information around maybe there's something going on within your community and your neighbor, and also building self-esteem. And so technology isn't all bad. And so there's actually great free methods and tools even out on YouTube that can teach you how to calm your nervous system on the go anywhere, and also can teach you how to really see yourself as a beautiful person, and actually have this I am. There's some amazing positive affirmations out there that really, it sounds so goofy to do, but I've been doing it for a year. And I heard on my morning ritual, and I have a female friend that does this too. It says, I am beautiful, and I can look at myself in the mirror. I can look at myself in the mirror. That is when technology is serving you, is that when you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am beautiful as I am. And that is such an important piece to me. And because women have been such an important aspect of my life. My mother is no longer living. I was a child of ADD. I have a hyperactivity. I still am. I call it my inner rabbit. And so when you talk about addiction and you talk about neurodivergency and ADHD and ADD, those are sensitivities. And so we also have women with children with these, and they're not negatives. They're actually a superpower. And so you can actually teach yourself, but this is all going back to the nervous system and using technology to teach people about the nervous system, to tell them that, hey, every year, your attention span is 23 minutes. You've been on this device for an hour. On this device for an hour, girl. Hey, but it doesn't mean when you take a break that you are listening to something else, your focus and your attention still on that. No, you need to learn how to just come back in yourself for 10 minutes. And people don't know how to do that. So then that's really how I see technology can help improve women, because it helped improve my life and my clients.
Mhm. Yes, James, thank you for your kind words, or even sharing the experience you've learned from your mom, and the things you have seen with your colleagues, standing on the mirror and saying, I am beautiful the way I am. Those are the things we even need to tell the younger girls who are still coming up and they're growing up in the age of internet. But let me just digress a little bit. Let's go to the other side, of the coin. Let's flip it. And I'm coming to you, Aliyah, Kat, and Stephanie. Why is technology becoming a disadvantage and failing to improve women's health outcomes? Aliyah, your thoughts, please. Your mic, kindly.
Yes.
All right.
What
Aliyah,
Adiz.
yeah, kindly. Yeah, it's Aliyah. Your mic, please, Aliyah. All right. As she prepares, maybe we can come back to you, Stephanie. Kindly go. Stephanie, and then Aliyah.
So what I notice is that when we're building out solutions, and when we're designing solutions for women's health, rarely are women in the room being part of the conversation. And if they are, it's one or two women with very limited perspective. So I'll just put out there, I'm of the age that I'm now going through menopause. So when I was younger, if I'm in a room and we're designing a medical solution, I have no concept of what a menopause is. So I would not even think or conceive of including that. Now that I'm going through menopause, I am now wanting to make sure that that is front and center. So I think that as we're building out these solutions, looking at who should be in the room, and one of the things that I have found very, 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 very successful is having the community and the end users be part of the entire development process. So you start off with gathering requirements or writing user stories or whichever methodology you're using. They're at the table helping you write these documents, being trained on how to write them in a way that the developers can understand. And then they're at the table when you're designing the solution to provide input. And then they're back at the table when you're ready to start testing, starting doing alpha tests, beta tests. And they're also at the table when you're doing the pilot in production and then moving onwards. So by having a strategy like that, we can actually reduce some of the disadvantages that are coming up when we talk about improvements in women's health and developing technology to improve women's health outcome. The second part of that is accessibility. So you will see that certain people, depending on the quality of their insurance, can get access to certain healthcare solutions that people with other health insurance don't have. And then obviously, when you're talking technology, the technologist wants to get compensated for the time, the energy, and costs of building out that solution. And so I believe that technology should be processed the same way that you're processing other medication, other doctor visits, and not just if you have a rich insurance policy, you get to have these access to these technology. And if you don't have a rich insurance policy, then you're at the mercy of your health insurance, and you have to wait until you're in dire condition before it's getting approved. So those are my ideas about how technology becomes a disadvantage. And even as we're making advances, we're still not getting it to the people that need to get access to these solutions.
Stephanie, I'm listening to you, and there's something that really resonates quite well when you talk about users being at every process, from the first step to the deployment. I think that is not something to request for. That is something that should be there in every step of innovation. And I'm coming back to you, Aliyah. What is your take on this particular subject?
Yes, so my take is more so in regards to how social media specifically is, well, it can be a disadvantage depending on how you use it. I mean, it can cause people to compare themselves to other people. You can get caught up into the likes on social media to where, if a post only got 20 likes, now you're struggling with your self worth. And then just a lot of access to a lot of different things now with social media. There's so many things that we just shouldn't see that are normalized on social media. I mean, if something harmful happened on the street, if there was a camera, you can just be regularly scrolling, and then now you might have seen somebody, get in a really bad accident, a very graphic image. So it's just so much coming at us. I think with the amount of notifications that a person can have on your cellular device can be overwhelming. And then when we talk about every application has a notification, I think it can just cause people to feel overwhelmed ultimately with like decision fatigue because there's life outside of a phone,
Mhm.
right? But when you have a million notifications on your phone, you can just get sucked up into your cell phone. And so I think a lot of people are addicted to their phones, like we stated earlier, and it's causing us to disconnect from people in the real world. So it's like we're all connected virtually, but people are lacking the depth and relationships that they crave. And it's because the real intimacy is in person communities and environments. And so, because of technology, I think we are so disconnected from each other now. And yeah.
All right. Aliyah, you bring out a very thought-provoking perspective here when you said we're too bombarded with a lot of information. I don't think our minds were prepared or they had the capacity to receive or take in all this information that keeps coming and it doesn't stop. And I know James has told us about how to recover from screen addiction, and perhaps I'll bring him later on and tell us more about that. But it's a concern. And when we have women's health applications, and you now have an application that always notifies you every time your health, this is how your cycles are. There's just too much information that is coming in, and I'm yet to learn more on how to really choose what to prioritize and what not to, especially for the younger people who don't have that decision making capacity. But before we go to that, Kat King, I'm very curious to find out what you have to add on this.
Sure, just want to make sure you can hear me. I have a little echo here. All right. Just mute myself.
Kat?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, but you're a
Okay,
little
great.
bit lowly, but we can hear you.
Oh, okay, no worries. Well, yeah, no, I'm coming from this from a place of I had an Army veteran. I suffer
Okay,
from
Kat, we are
treatment-resistant.
struggling to hear your audio. Is it okay if we just adjust it and then we'll come back to you? Meanwhile, I can just go to the other speaker, but we will be back to you after you fix it. Thank you. Kim, I see you on meeting. It's like you have something to say. Please bring it on.
Yeah, I wanted to just add that another disadvantage is when the technology creates the illusion of care without delivering real care. So a polished app isn't the same as good healthcare. More tracking doesn't automatically lead to better outcomes. It just means we have more data that can just be sitting there. And many platforms collect data, send the alerts like we're talking about, and generate engagement, but they leave the women to interpret everything on their own. So, more data does not automatically mean the better care. And technology can increase the anxiety without improving the pathways to care. So it's really not solving the problem. It's just giving more information that may have may give better care or may not.
Absolutely, and that's a very That's a very intriguing thought that you brought there, because it may not bring any assistance. It may not. It's not a guarantee. Tanya, you have something to add. Please say it.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with what Kim is saying. A lot of technology is being built that we're seeing that has a promise of delivery or some kind of transformation, but the execution is lacking. So the E for E should be excellence and E for execution. And a lot of money has been poured into so many new technologies and tracking data, but they don't test with the community, which is what we're talking here. They don't test with the end user. So coming from a background of focus testing with real people, which is what we do in film and television, when we design the technology gap, when we design something that's a play interaction on a website or a game for television and kids and co-viewing, it is focus testing with the audience. But when you're designing for technology, on our technology side, often the product leaders or the product designers are building based on avatars, and the avatars and the personas, and those personas are not real people, and they're holding on to their intellectual property as if they're going to lose their, they're clutching their diamonds and their pearls, and they don't want to show it to anybody. So that is the big gap in the way that we're training. And of course, women, when we have a problem, we like talking to everybody. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? Will you buy it? Will you want to use it? We call it the toothbrush experience in design. And if you don't want to use it every single day, then it's not going to work for you. And if you don't make it fun and playful, there's going to be a lot of financial pitfalls and missteps with investing in technology. And it's happened across every new wave of technology. So as women designers, we have to really let everybody know loud and clear that we must test with the end user. And it's happened in the D&D where they've designed all kinds of things. It's happened time and time again. So I can't stress more that the biggest disadvantage in who owns the benefits from, the women's health, it's actually going to have to benefit the actual women, and we must keep testing that way. Otherwise, we will have all these missteps. And that's one of the things we do coming from film and television. We take that into the way we design our technology, and we make sure the end user is going to love it, and it's going to create an automatic health outcome for them that is going to increase their life and get them removed from being clinically diagnosed to actually having a really good quality of life in whatever area they're working with.
Definitely, Tanya, and I loved how you coined it, the toothbrush design. I picked that up with me. Kat is back. Please, Kat, bring your thoughts. We're really happy to hear from you. And before you even come in, I also want to give this question to you. Who owns women's health data and who benefits from it the most? Kat, over to you.
I mean, if we're all watching the news, I think we know who owns our data and our information. Big tech does. Our big three here in the United States it's a global and international industry. So we're looking at your Mark Zuckerbergs and your Elon Musk. And this is a man who's got control over, internet and the ability of weapons systems. Like I said before, I'm an Army veteran. So I come at this through the lens of as much as I am hopeful and very inspired by much of the positive technology, we've heard a lot of examples of great strides in technology for women's health in terms of, being able to detect different types of cancers earlier, and that's wonderful. I've even, in terms of my mental health, struggles myself as an Army veteran with PTSD and schizophrenia. Many benefits to technology are coming out for folks like me because I don't have a medication that works for me to, stop voices and stop all the hallucinations. Like right now, I still struggle with them now. I do have hope because there are folks out there who are abroad, maybe not in the United States, but out there in the world who are thinking of people like me, the Army veterans with psychosis, the people with PTSD out there in the world. More people, suffer from trauma than we really want to talk about or acknowledge in our society. So I think right now I'm an apocalyptimist right now in terms of technology. I am very disappointed and worried about the privacy violations we've seen from Meta in terms of these AR glasses. And as somebody who creates with AR, I'm saddened by this because privacy is everything, and we basically sold it all off to these companies. And every time we open up our phone and there's a little flag, little screen comes up on your little screen, your even smaller screen that comes up with a tiny little text that says, you know, this is this and this, and we promise, and we don't, all those little disclaimers, and we just kind of scroll past it now. We've been desensitized to look over and overlook these really heavy, legally heavily jargoned, disclaimers, and we just go boom, next thing, and we don't realize how much of our information that little by little, it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts over the last 25 years for generations who don't know how this technology works under the hood. What's even scarier for me is that even the people who made this technology don't understand how it works under the hood fully anymore, and it's kind of a little bit of a runaway train. So from an ethics perspective, the ship has left the ship has left the harbor. We are flying by the seat of our pants. Nobody really understands the full length long-term consequences. And so a lot of our discussions come from a place of optimism and a hope for the future, but we're already seeing the adverse effects of how AI is impacting mental health. We've seen the AI psychosis trend. That's what I'm here to talk about right now, because when we talked about, Tanya, you made a great point about how there's women out there who are formulating relationships with AI avatars, and there are children who are forming relationships and attachments with systems that aren't alive, aren't conscious, cannot really reciprocate, and cannot form that same type of attachment back. But that does speak to what Kim is saying. There's not accessibility and agency in the world right now. We don't have, women are in the United States are seeing the rolling back of our rights to our agency over our body and our health. So right now I'm talking about AI psychosis because this is a dangerous and worrying trend. You've got something that we don't really fully understand how it's working underneath, and it's already affecting people to the extent that we have a trend for it, and it's called AI psychosis. So you can imagine that somebody who has a full-length schizophrenia disorder, where I live 24 hours a day all the time with this kind of sense of I don't know what is real, that's where we get into what is psychosis. Well, psychosis is a state where the brain's ability to determine, to discern what is real, what is an internal experience from what is externally happening to us becomes disrupted. And so people can experience things like voices, sounds that come out of nowhere, delusions, strongly held beliefs that we can't change no matter what new evidence is presented, or even disorganized thinking and perception disturbances, and that can lead to distortions of meaning or threat detection. And as a soldierized human being, we don't talk a lot about how that can really impact what is going on. There's one really famous example in the news a few years ago where a gentleman, I don't remember if he was an Army veteran or not, but he believed that the bowling alley was announcing to the world, was just broadcasting to the world that he was a child, a predator. And he took action and he shot up the bowling alley. So we're talking about the fact that this kind of thing, this disrupted idea of what is real and what is not, that line is being blurred. So as an XR person and as somebody who creates immersive technology, it's important to remember that we're not alone, and this technology needs to consider that if somebody with schizophrenia is being impacted adversely by AR technology or even VR technology, it's happening to people who don't have schizophrenia. That means that our human minds are really vulnerable.
Hold that thought, first of all. Hold that thought, because we're gonna come there, and I see people like James want to jump in the room and maybe add something to that. But Kat, we really respect and we honor the presence of having veterans like you, and every veteran or army or any military person or anyone who is working in the public service, making sure the security of citizens. We really honor you and thank you for your presence, Kat. And just to go deeper with you, James and Aliyah and Kim, what technology privacy risks uniquely affect women? And I know, James, you're not a woman, but you have experiences. Tell us what you've experienced.
I have an opinion. Yeah, I have an opinion. I've met many of my early friends were females, especially as a gay male, as a young male in high school. So I will never forget my gals. But I actually want to go to the prior question, if I can, of who owns women's health data. It should be the freaking woman. No, and that's where the things get blurred. Gets blurred. Yes. It should be the woman, period. Because and then who you're keeping up at night, with alerts is that you're destroying their attention and their focus. They should be focusing on themselves. And that's the thing. It's just like cutting out the noise. So anyways, I could talk about this. So I'll get back to the privacy piece because I heard something last week that really gets me riled. And when you have boys, and I was in high school and I went to a Catholic grade school, so I saw some things in the closets that would shock you as a in the 80s. Anyways, but when a boy can take a picture of a female, a classmate, and create pornography, how is this allowed? How is this? It's even beyond the deep fake. That's when I heard this, and I follow a lot with Jonathan Haidt with the Anxious Generation, and he really is a male voice of what's going on, and that's the thing where privacy. Are you kidding me? And then you as a young girl, I couldn't even imagine as a teenager what that would be like in school. I can't even. So to me, that's the privacy risk, is when it hits the young girl. And what does she do? And how is this technology allowed to do this?
Yes. That's the question. That's the heaviest question that we all have here. And just to chime in on that, there was a report. I'm here in Nairobi, Kenya. You definitely know Kenya runs so many data annotation companies, and we had people who were working for Meta, and some of the data they were collecting from Ray-Ban glasses and what they were seeing daily, just doing their data annotation and all that regulation and whatever duties they tend to when it comes to reviewing data, and they could express the amount of data that is being captured by these classes is enormous, and people are not aware. And some of them are just very I wouldn't say them. I wouldn't say it's something you can't tell someone. I saw your data doing this and this and that, but they were never aware. What if those data just leaks out? Bank accounts, children, what you're doing with your kids, and it's a very saddening time and saddening point to be at. But I just want to hear from you guys. For me, it really intrigues me the kind of things that I saw from those people who were just doing that work for Meta. Tanya and Abby. But let me just start with Abby. Not Abby. Aliyah B. Sorry, Aliyah, please.
Yeah, so I think ultimately what it stemmed from, like what was earlier stated, is these tools as an AI engineer were not created with the end user in mind. And a part of AI ethics is one of the things that they go over is there's a difference between, I forgot the exact term, but the way women approach things versus how men approach technology is different. Ultimately, from an ethics perspective, women actually care about the end user, they care about nurturing and these concepts. So a lot of that gets missed in technology, right? I mean, ultimately, I think there's literally less than 1% of women in AI. So when women aren't even a part of the development of these tools, right, we're ultimately, anybody that's not a part of the development of the tools face the largest risk, because if you weren't considered in the development of them, then you're going to have the biggest impact. And so as an AI engineer, it's hilarious because there was a therapist talking about people going to ChatGPT for therapy yesterday. And so I was having a discussion in the comments, and so people were saying that these technology companies need to be held accountable. And at first, my take was at the end of the day, the tool is going to generate an output based off the prompt that it's given. So you can't necessarily control what happens. You can give the same prompt to two different tools and even the same tool and get a different output. However, if they did design these things with the end user in mind, these guardrails could have been put up front.
Yes.
Instead of being proactive. But I do know with tech, they're just trying to get it out the door the fastest. And so with that, they don't think about some things that should be literally mitigated in risk mitigation. And so another group that faces the biggest risk is with some of the states where abortions aren't legal and you're using apps like Flow to track stuff. That puts you in a potential risk. Like we said, companies might put out that, they're protecting your data, but in the event that they're not, and you're literally logging your cycle and tracking intercourse, things that you should be able to do on these apps, but then they could be potentially giving that out. Like we never know. What if these systems are flagging if your cycle's late?
Yes.
Right. You never know. And so with that, it puts us at risk. And like I think James said, women should own our data. I should own my cycle tracking on a cycle app. Like it should stay on my device. And so
Definitely.
there's definitely conversations that need to be had to protect
Yes.
women in the future.
Yeah, and we're having them there here. I see my timer is really putting me on check, but I want to come to you, Tanya. I see you, Stephanie. I'm also going to come to you, but Tanya, quickly, what do you think about this topic? Your mic, please. Your mic.
Thank you. I keep on forgetting. I think there's a huge risk that the big elephant in the room is when we are not giving women access to their data, they're actually not being able to create wealth with their work and with their data. And so what we want to do is when we're helping people with the technology that we're building, we have to move from an extractive economy, which is what most of these tools have been designed to do, to extract all your information, extract all the value, and extract all the data for somebody else's wealth. So there is no community wealth going back into communities for women. There's nothing. It's completely extractive. So we have to move from a data extractive economy to an abundance economy where
Yes.
that data can be cycled back into communities that need the most care, so that many of these tools are designed only if you can afford them, only if you can afford the subscription rate. And that data is then sold and done whatever, some protections are in place in other parts of the world, but in the US, it is not as protective as
Yes.
it could be. So we must rally to protect our women, because our women give birth to men, to any gender. And if we don't protect women, we are not protecting the health and wealth of our planet and our people.
Wholeheartedly. I agree wholeheartedly. And thank you for even marrying the issue of data with wealth creation, right? I think that's one piece that we need to really, really go deeper into. But our time is really short. And I'm coming to you, Stephanie, Kim, and Kat and James, briefly. But Stephanie, how can more women become builders of health technology? Briefly.
So one of the things that I think that women do is they say, "Oh, this is too complicated. I can't possibly know how to do this." And most of the time, men are building out solutions. They have no clue what they're doing, just guessing. And so if we were to rewrite that narrative and say, "I don't know all the intricacies of how to build a solution, but I know what I know what it's like to live as a woman in this world. I know what health issues that I'm dealing with. I know what health issues my sisters are dealing with. And so I am going to volunteer to be part of the conversation. I'm going to be volunteer to be part of the user groups. I'm going to encourage others to participate and volunteer. And where possible, I'm going to demand that the technology company show who is in different phases of their life cycle and the level of diversity in those different phases of their life cycle. And then where possible, because at the end of the day, we're at a point in our society that unless you have financial implications, nobody pays attention to you. So move to another company. And if you have to use a company who is not respectful of women's rights and women's health, then do it under protest. So say, I'm going to use company X, but know that I'm using it because I have no other choice and I dislike using company X. And live in our advocacy. That is really how we start pushing the needle and enforcing the rules and the respect that we deserve. Otherwise, we're going to continually have things that exploit us and create fear and disruption in our lives. And who knows what will happen? Like, what would the insurance company do with this data about my menstrual cycle, about my the data that they're going to use with the frequency with which I have intercourse. I mean, we have no idea what they're cooking up in the back room when we sign up for these apps. And I'm going to leave you with one other thing. Try to stay away from free apps. You know, we've become so enamored about getting everything for free. If you are not paying for something, then you are the product.
Definitely.
And so then you have no control over what they do with your data.
Yes.
If you're paying for something and you say, my data should not be using these things, and they agree, and then they breach that, then you have legal recourse. But if you don't demand that, and then you say, I'm going to use it for free, then it is a little bit naive to expect that we're going to get a solution for free. It's expensive to build these things, and then have full control over our privacy.
Yeah,
That's
definitely, Stephanie. You know, because of our time, I could go on, and we could even just dig that layer of free things. If something is free,
I just want to add 30 seconds though to what Aaliyah was saying.
Yes, I know, Tanya, but our
just
time,
because Aaliyah said something important that most of the time she's one of the only women in the room, and so did Stephanie. More women need to show up. When I go into those AI rooms and I'm designing and I'm learning from so many of the best people, I just want to inspire any woman that is watching here to be able to say that it's possible to start designing without any information or any knowledge whatsoever. There is so much available online that's free to train, and we're all here to help anybody that's watching that wants to make a change, to help the women's movement, so that more women designers are at the forefront designing.
All right, Tanya, our time, and thank you for adding that up. I want to hear from Kim and Kat and James briefly, but Kim, please tell us your final sentiments and what you think overall about this topic.
Okay, so if there's one thing we should prioritize moving forward, it's making sure that technology in women's health is designed to expand care, protect our privacy, and strengthen the trust. When technology does that, it becomes a powerful tool for equity. And when it doesn't, it risks reproducing the same gaps that we have now, and that we've been trying to close for decades. So it's super important. Everything that everyone has said today just brings to light that women need to be funded, right? Women founders need to be funded. Hiring more women in the product and engineering space, and recognizing our lived experiences as our expertise, right? So it may not be on paper, but we live this every day.
Definitely. And thank you for bringing out the issue of fund women projects. James, and then Kat will finalize this. James, briefly, because of time.
Yeah, what I would say from women building technology is focus and attention. Focus and attention. Because when you talk about emotions, you'll get the eyes rolled. When you talk about well-being, you'll get the eyes rolled. But when you talk about focus and attention, the bottom line, how much money is lost because of errors, because everyone's freaking distracted, that's when you drop a mic. That's what women can do. Take the emotion out of it, get the business. It's focus and attention in the nervous system.
All right, focus and attention. Kat, conclude this panel with very brief remarks.
Sure, yeah. Well, thank you for the conversation. I think the real question here isn't whether technology belongs in women's health. It absolutely does. The question is who's building it, whose lived experiences shape it, and when the people designing these systems include women and disabled women in particular, especially people like me, veterans with mental illnesses like PTSD and schizophrenia, when we get to, as patients themselves, feed back to these systems, then technology can become a tool for dignity and access, and rather than extraction and exploitation. And that way, technology shouldn't just be more about data than it is about our bodies and our minds. Our minds are our bodies, and so it should be more agency for the people living in them. And at the very last thought I'll say is that technology should just expand human dignity in healthcare, not turn our bodies against us, and not turn us against each other in how we approach healthcare moving forward.
Beautifully concluded card. And this was a very fantastic roundtable panel. I know we could have gone on and on. A lot was learned. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Aliyah. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, James. Thank you, Kim. And I would encourage you, our audience, please follow these leaders, support what they're doing. And as for me, I would tell you, come back. Welcome back to GatherVerse. We have more summits coming up. Please come dine with us once again. And over to you, GatherVerse team. Our Gather was well. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Hello and greetings. Welcome to our first Fireside Chat Women's Health Summit 2026. And today I'm very honored to have the one and only Angel from Disruptor DAO. Shout out to Disruptor DAO. And before we begin our Fireside Chat titled Design Health, Identity, Confidence, and Whole Person Well-Being. Please, Angela, tell us who you are and what really inspired you to join us.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, GatherVerse team. Again, I'm Angela Doyne, one of the co-founders of Disruptor DAO. And our mission is centered around mindset, knowledge, wealth, as we are supporting the education and investment of into the Web3 space, into disruptive technologies. And so we've been over the past, 43 years now, we've been educating on what it means to build our mental well-being and our financial fortitude, leveraging disruptive technologies in this new digital age and economy that's being created. And so we give thanks to the GatherVerse team. We've been with you all before and are super excited and honored to be a part of the conversation today.
We're also excited to have you back with us. Shout out again, once again, to Disruptor DAO. You know, a lot has been expressed from the previous panels, and this is where we bring in the topic of identity. Do you think identity has a role to play in shaping the way women approach their health, and how does it do that?
Okay, can you hear me a bit better now, Lynn? Okay,
Yes.
Awesome. So yes, identity, right? Yeah, the previous panel was so powerful in recognizing that, we're all divine creative beings, right? With women in particular, we have a vantage point and a vision and an eye for seeing multiple things, right? And for looking at, let me say this, for looking at situations and things more holistically. And so with having a more holistic vantage point and tapping into our creativity in that way, it definitely supports, who we are, right? And the energies that we draw into our experience. And so with having that heightened level of identity, it's super very important to nourish our health and to think about, what does it take to operate at that at those levels, right? So we think about like, are we getting enough rest? Are we drinking enough water? Are we eating? Or are we, typically as women, we just go, solutions. And oftentimes we find ourselves neglecting our health and well-being. And that kind of becomes a part of our identity as well. And so I really thank you for bringing that conversation or bringing that to the forefront.
Yes, and just to scratch a layer and going a little bit deeper and dragging confidence into this thread, how does confidence have to do with physical well-being, especially for women? What do you have to say on that?
Yeah. So I don't know if this is unfortunately or fortunately, or it's just the time that we're living in as being in this historical patriarchal timeline that we're in presently. And with the GatherVerse community, I appreciate again this platform and this space for recognizing that we are at a shift right now when it comes to the energies and the vibrations that are being pulled forth, and it coming from a more feminine, it's calling out for more feminine centered energy to be present, right? And so that gives the opportunity for greater confidence and greater appreciation, I should say, too,
Yes.
of femininity, more women-centered approaches to things, particularly in the business realm as technologies are being developed and created. And so back to your initial question of identity, right? Women, we have to tap into our divine creativity and receive that confidence to be able to walk in our supreme identity in creating this new world that is manifesting before our eyes. So
Mhm.
yes, having the confidence to speak forth with your ideas, speak forth with the solutions that we come up with is super very important. And don't be afraid, right?
Yes, don't be afraid. I think that's one of the
Yeah.
things we've talked about the previous panel is that women need to be more bold in building, just like men. They just build, even if they don't have idea of women's point, they will just build. So it's the ability to be bold, confident, and running away with it. And just one more question because our time is really, really come as fast as it comes, as fast as it goes. And what role does storytelling help in inspiring, helping healing, helping encouraging more innovative women in this realm?
So, what is encouraging more in this realm, in this way, is this really transformative opportunity that we have. And I'm so grateful to be living in this time of existence as we are on the cusp of just revolutionary technologies from VR to AI to quantum and all these things that we dreamed about that we see in sci-fi movies. We actually are in
What our
divine
ancestors never
alignment.
saw.
Yeah, exactly. We're in divine alignment to like actually create these things. It's super
Yes.
exciting for us.
Yes.
It's so super exciting for us. And so within our DAO, we spend a lot of time honing in on understanding that, again, health is wealth. And when we are mentally fortified, we are able to receive ideas and things like that to manifest and put forth awesome creations in this incredible timeline that we're living in. So innovation is definitely tied to health. Innovation is tied to as you were saying, our confidence and our creativity. And so this is a phenomenal time that we're living in. And we're talking about, whole person well-being. I invite everyone to join us on Wednesdays. Our DAO has Wellness Wednesdays on our YouTube channel, where we talk about the intersections of financial health, physical well-being, mental well-being, and the intersections of how we're incorporating disruptive technology and embracing disruptive technologies, which can sometimes be a bit daunting in this space. There's a lot of nefarious things going on in the background. There's a lot of skepticism going on, but we also know that there's a lot of good in the world that is being created ethically, and so we're all about it.
Angela, we could go on and on, and just to wholeheartedly support what you said. It's such an exciting time because the access that we have right now and the access that is about to come has never been like this before. Globally, even me here in Africa, I could proudly say I have internet. I'm connected to you who is in the US. This is something that was not possible 6 years ago, but look at where we are, and it's just a very exciting time, and we need to take all full advantage that we can. But just give us one word. If you were just to tell women something about their health, just one word briefly, what would it be?
So I would say one of the biggest things about our well-being right now is to be intentional about your own self-care, and I dare say putting that first. Even the smallest things of like, I'm trying to get more water in. I'm gonna wake up and drink water first thing in the day, right? And doing these little shifts over time will add to monumentous well-being for yourself, right? That, and also being mindful of our energy. with with data and us being tied to devices so much, we're receiving so much energy all the time, constantly. And so being present and aware, getting more water and hydration into our bodies definitely sets us off in that divine flow that the water and light invites. And so thank you again, Lynn. I know our time is coming to a close. Thank you, GatherVerse team and the GatherVerse world for tuning in with us.
All right, Angel, that was beautifully concluded. Please follow Angel. Look at what she's doing. She's doing brilliant things at Disrupted Dial. Engage with her. And just one more question: did you take your water? I'm personally going to take my water after
Yes,
this.
I have it here with you.
All right, I'm going to take
Yes,
my water.
indeed.
All right, GatherVerse team, over to you. Our fireside chat was well. Thank you so much, Angel.
Thank you.
Greetings. Welcome once again to GatherVerse Women's Health Summit 2026. Panelists, we're happy to have you join us. March is Women's Month, so happy International Women's Day. It's so good to see all of you here to have this wonderful roundtable discussion on work, leadership, and women's health. I want to appreciate previous speakers that has joined us on this summit to discuss women's health. Every conversation had here has been quite insightful, with great impact and perspectives as well. Before we get started, I'd like for us to briefly introduce ourselves, and then we will head right into the questions. I would introduce myself, and then I'll start with Susan and Erila, Dr. Zakia, Letitia, and Amy. So my name is Salvation Chigaraka, Global Programs Director at GatherVerse. I'm joining you from the beautiful island of Lagos, Nigeria. And it's so good to join you today to have this wonderful conversation on work, leadership, and women's health. It's one that I find personally intriguing and I have been having conversation about. So happy to join you. Susan, please kindly introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're joining us from, and your inspiration for joining the summit.
Absolutely. Thank you, Salvation. My name is Suzanne Bloom. I am from the west coast of Canada. I am north of Vancouver. Most people know where that is. I am a life design and manifestation coach. And when you talk about women's health and the workplace and leadership, and so many of us believe that that's out of our control, and yet so much of it is within our grasp. And so that's why I really wanted to gather here today.
Thank you, Suzanne. Very much welcome from the north side of Vancouver. We welcome you. And yes, we're also part of Inspiration. Arila, please.
Hello, this is Erila. I'm joining from Cambridge, Massachusetts. I am the Chief Operation Officer of Global Innovation Management Institute, the largest certifying body and a network of 18,000 innovators. But I'm also founder of Voice of Women Innovation, which is a network of I created last year actually to increase the women involvement in decision making when it comes to innovation, but also in innovation teams. And actually there we have a cluster that it is on healthcare innovation. And I'm really happy to talk about this issue today.
We welcome you, Arila. Great work on what you're doing there. It's very important work. We need to take more action, and you're doing it. So thank you very much. Dr. Zakia, please.
Hello, everyone. I am very humbled and honored to be here with you all. My name is Dr. Zakia Ghaffari. I am a geriatric pharmacist. and I have done over 25 years in women's health and geriatric care in New York City. And I think this is a discussion that it deserves a lot more attention than we do give it when it comes to women and leadership and how it's been affecting women for the past many decades. I'm glad to be a part of this discussion with everyone.
Dr. Zaki, I personally agree with you on that. I do. Welcome very much. Letitia. Please, your mic is muted. Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to make sure. Thank you so much. Super excited to be here today. This is actually my second opportunity being on the panel. And so it was amazing the first time around. I anticipate the same this go round. My name is Letitia B. Russell. I'm an HR consultant, speaker, and emotional well-being coach. And so my work really sits at the intersection of thinking about workplace culture and leadership pressure, right? Thinking about that emotional cost of success. And so many leaders look super successful on paper, but they're burned out in private. And so that's where my work sits today. I'm just inspired to join this conversation simply because I think the growing recognition of workplace performance, right, and women's health, it's very much connected, but it's not something that we really talk about and say out loud. And so super excited to just being able to join this conversation so that others can truly see themselves in some of the responses and the stories that we share today.
Yes, totally. Thank you very much. Welcome, Letitia. Amy, please.
Thank you so much. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. Really looking forward to our discussion. My name is Amy Edelstein, and I'm the founder and executive director of Inner Strength Education, which brings mindfulness and systems thinking programs inside the public schools. And we've worked with 35,000 young people, and now, expanding into working with leadership. I've been a part of the women's change movement since the 70s, and a part of the wellness movement also since the 70s. I started my own meditation practice in 78. So it's a little bit ancient history. And I feel that it's critical right now as we look at AI tools, at data collection, at advancement, at somewhat of a denial of our humanity and the value of our embodied sentience and consciousness. And that tends to affect women much more strongly and directly. So I think this is a really important conversation to approach in all these different ways, from education and wellness to technology and our unknown future. So thank you.
You're welcome, Amy. There's a lot to be unpacked from that angle, Amy. So we're here to discuss it. Shall we begin, panelists? Awesome. Amy, I think you will kick off with the first question. I'm also a community builder myself. I am a chapter lead for a women organization here in Lagos, Nigeria, and we're focused in empowering young women and girls in tech. And then we have this section every Friday at the end of every month, or what we call it Rant Friday. So we give room to the women in the community to come rant about everything they feel like they want to share with somebody. And trust me, if you join a community group on a Friday, you will be amazed. And most of this conversation is geared towards burnout from work. A lot of things are just expressed, and that's consigning. And that's why this conversation is very much important to me. And Amy, yes, please, you will start the conversation with us for us and tell us where you mentioned you started this movement in the 70s and you've been on here pushing and keep pushing as well. Where do you think, where are workplace structures misaligned with women's biological realities?
I think we can start in so many places. One of the things that's little thought about is what's the temperature in the workplace? So women's dress code is often wearing tight sleeveless tops while the men have undershirts and long sleeve shirts and jackets. So women freeze and men are hot. And women, it's a small thing, but when your environment is so unwelcoming and so not designed for you, from a very visceral level, you feel like you don't exactly belong. It's something about yourself and your body and your embodiment doesn't fit this culture. And, again, it goes to workplace dress. Most women feel that if they don't take 45 minutes in the morning to make themselves presentable, they won't be taken seriously. Meanwhile, they're dealing with children or husbands or caretaking for elderly. So again, the expectations of how you just show up physically are an impediment to women that it's unseen. Men don't notice it because they don't deal with it. It's not necessarily a malicious intent. It's just, a lack of understanding. So I think, there are other issues around maternity leave and childcare and just acceptance of a need for a flexible schedule for women who are primary caretakers. So all of those things are structural realities. But I think deeper than all of those things is how much we care for our collective flourishing, our collective health, well-being, happiness, purpose, and fulfillment. And if we're taking that as our raison d'etre, rather than profit and shareholders, we would shift our view. So we wouldn't just be fixing the temperature or changing the dress code, because those things we know, another thing's going to pop up. What we want to do is shift the value set so that flourishing, meaning, purpose, belonging, and fulfillment of our higher capacities are really what's generating our economy.
Amy, a lot was just said there, especially when you started with the dress code. I can I can relate to that a lot. This tightness, this non-freedom thing, that starts with how we dress, how we look. It's something that needs to be paid attention to. And then when you moved further to tell us more on how we need to re-review what has been in the system. I think I read somewhere about the Great Breakup. I don't know if any of you have read about the Great Breakup. It's this research by McKinsey reporting women in leadership leaving their jobs because of burnout, because of stress levels that they can no longer tolerate. And that's consigning. Letitia, I would like for you to take us forward to chime in on your own perspective on this question.
Yeah, so when you think about, I think the question is how does burnout manifest just differently in women? It does on so many levels, and there are many times it's comparative of how does it look in women versus how does it look in our male counterparts. For the most part, women often experience burnout because of the professional pressures as well as the personal pressures. And so many times I hear that whatever happens in your personal space, you leave it there, right? And then whatever happens in your professional space, like that's when you handle it. But I do believe if you don't take care of it in one setting, it's going to spill over into the next, right? And so as women, we have job responsibilities. We carry the emotional labor and wear it like a badge of honor, right? Whether it's mentoring people, whether it's conflict, whether it's supporting individuals at work, right? We manage those things. And burnout doesn't always show its face immediately, but it does show up as the chronic exhaustion, right? I'm so tired, I just can't function, but we keep moving. It's being able to make decisions. It's decision fatigue, but so many times it's tied to performance or lack thereof, but it's not. We're burned out, right? It's that emotional depletion that we feel. And when those things happen, we tend to quietly withdraw, right? And so it's not this big hoopla of, oh my God, I'm burned out. It's none of that, but it shows up more times than not in those high achievers, right? In those women that simply need to get things done. And we are running on empty. And because of that, the burnout is often overlooked or tied to something else or labeled as something else until it becomes a health issue. And so when we think about like, how does burnout manifest? That's how it manifests, because there is so much responsibility that we don't always name it or call it out or sit with it. We continue to go and move.
Right, Letitia. Everything you said that there is spot on. I'd like Dr. Saki to take us a bit closer to what we're trying to talk about burnout, right? Because I have felt burnout. I'm sure you have all felt burnout at some point in time. And like Letitia just mentioned, we we picture it as something else until there is a challenge. One headache there, one pain there, and then we start realizing, oh, we actually had overlooked the things that we shouldn't overlook. Dr. Zaki, take us a bit further. How does burnout manifest differently in women? Latisha already mentioned, but you can share more on this with us.
I think burnout in women shows up very differently than in men. And we tend to lean towards male leadership and how that's been a part of our culture for many decades. And so everything else kind of gets put by the wayside. I agree with everything Letitia said. I think in women, the burnout gets layered in with where they are hormonally and physically at that time. And why I say this, because during a woman's 20s, 30s, and 40s, they're expected to be in these leadership roles where they're not only given a lot of responsibilities, but they can definitely live up to those. And they want to surpass all of those and be successful. But then you get to this point in a woman's life where either she's going through a pregnancy, or she's going through a health issue, or she is going through perimenopause, which can start as early as 30, 35 years old. Now, with the state of our food and all of the pollutants that we have, perimenopause has started a lot earlier than it has been documented in the past. And so when these things happen, the symptoms come up in many different ways where it's not recognized as necessarily as burnout, or it's not recognized in a way that honors the woman. It's just a thing that you have to fix. It's a thing that you have to get over. It's a thing that you have to leave at the door and not talk about, because everyone is looking at you to see if you're going to live up to the expectations that they have, if you're going to continue to be the great leader that you've been for the last, however many years. But this is where we need to take a step back and see a person for the holistic view of who they are, and not just what they can produce for a company, right? So we have focused, I think, far too long, especially in leadership, in making sure that we get every ounce of goodness out of a person without looking to them to see what it is that they need for their longevity in leadership, what it is they need for their mental health so that they don't face burnout. And burnout in women shows up as not only in getting stressed and having a lack of sleep, or having some symptoms that are related to ADHD, where you have 10 things open, 10 tabs open in your mind at all times. But at the same time, it comes out in other ways where you're constantly short-tempered, where you're not able to sleep, so you're not able to reset at all. And then it has led to chronic fatigue syndrome in many women in leadership. It has led to symptoms that are almost like lupus, where you feel like from the inside, you're literally falling apart and you just don't know why. And you don't know what's happening. And you keep thinking it's me internally and not what is around me and that's affecting me. I personally have gone through this several times, in fact, and I have to tell you from personal experience, in the very beginning, I started to doubt myself, to say, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe this is just not the space where I'm supposed to be. When in fact, I was doing probably 150% of what was expected of me in this role. And I still thought that wasn't enough. And I still thought I had to do more, because I wanted to be successful. I had goals, I have ambitions, and many women in leadership do have continuous goals. So not only do we beat ourselves up about it, we're not getting enough support. We're not giving ourselves a break at all. And underneath all of this is we just don't understand that the female body, both physically, psychologically, and mentally, it functions very differently than men's. And so if we have more open discussions about this, where we support the longevity of leadership, instead of saying, where you look at the outcomes instead of seeing how present they are today, right? If you are actually looking at strategy instead of taking off to say, did they show up on time? Did they leave on time? Did they stay overtime? I think that would serve not only the company in itself, no matter what industry that is, but it would definitely serve the person, the woman in that position more holistically than we have ever done in the past. And I think that's incredibly important. I mean, we have so many women as part of the workforce and in leadership roles where I'm surprised this hasn't been addressed sooner. But this has been like a part of my generation of women moving forward all these years, where we traded in the high heels for sneakers for a while, right? That was the thing. We didn't want to walk on pavements with high heels just because we needed to look good. We wanted to be comfortable because we were doing all these other things on the side. So it's just like Amy said, it's the small things. It just a change in the room temperature is one thing, but it does start the conversation of being mindful of where this person is and how we can support them.
Yeah, yes, Dr. Zaki, you said a lot there that are very meaningful. And your experience, I'm sure each and every one of us can relate to it at some stage or at some phase in our career path. And there's something you mentioned, expectations. And then I have this backup question. When you mentioned expectation, maybe I was just so into agreeing with nearly everything you mentioned. So I would just take up the question. And one of what you said, you mentioned expectations. And then it brings me to ask, who is expecting us to show up so much more than we should show up? The blind expectations. Who is expecting that from us? Are we proving someone is other than ourselves? Because I think that's where the burnout comes in most times, from within. Oh, I have this milestone 2026. I want to smash this goal 2026. I must hit this bucket list 2026. It starts from there, right? And expectations that coming up. So is it within us? Are there external forces? Who is expecting us? What are the forces giving us these expectations that we overlook our health sometimes and we stay up 1 a.m., 3 a.m., we're sleeping 4 a.m. every day. We've normalized it. We're saying, oh, work-life balance is not really for me now, maybe next year. Who's expecting us to go that mile? I really like to hear from you.
Thank you very much, and that's a great question. I think it's twofolded actually, and I don't know what has been the cause, like at the first place. But first of all, I think the society we have learned basically, we got used since we were kind of little girls that hey, we have to be great at school, we have to be great friends, great daughters, and probably great wives, and then great employees, or then of course we dreamt about being great leaders. And I think despite how we were raised, overachievers or not, at least from my experience working with women, they get the work done. I've seen that, their performance is great. Of course, there will be differences, from generation to generation or things like that, but still the best colleagues that I have are women. Sorry for saying that, but they get the work done and they are doers. So, but again, it's not enough, So, for example, when they get pregnant, I've heard many women being afraid of saying that to their, leaders, because there is the chance of not getting promoted, not giving that exciting project to them, or even more. I have women actually in my network. I was completely shocked that in countries like Europe, in Spain, for example, even though the laws exist, she was fired immediately when the leader in a big company, that the leader learned that she was pregnant. And these things exist, that's the reality. But not to mention after the let's say at the postpartum period, I am actually just came from the maternity leave 3 months, and we know the US, for example, is one of the countries, the only country in OECD basically, that you don't have a national pay maternity leave. So right away there, it's kind of an impediment basically for these women, and a worry, another concern. So besides, of course, the other concerns that you have, that hey, I have to bring a healthy baby into this world. I don't know how to raise if it's for the first time and all this. Now you have the worry that, okay, but I'm going to get fired. probably I'm not going to get promoted, I'm not going to get the salary, and all this because, why can't we have all? We can have the career, we can have the baby and all this, because there is also this tendency, oh no, you can't have it all, and there is a phase, you have to basically be a mom and then to be whatever, a leader or a great employee. But I think I've seen women do all, and this is kind of a boomerang sometimes, that we put to ourselves that, hey, we have to prove them wrong that we can do it. And we got used to this tactic, and then all the burnout, all the mental exhaustion, we live that ourselves. And if you don't have a support network, meaning if you don't have a helpful husband, if you don't have a mom or a person who can help you with the baby, with the house and all this, then I think you are screwed. And I've seen many women basically that they have to also in a way do also other roles, like house basically chores, or they have to basically take care of the husband beside the baby, take care for the parents and all this kind of stuff, and they don't have a support network, and they are still doing a great work basically. I've seen them, and I know that there is a huge burnout on their side. But what should we do? I think what should we do is on us as female leaders, but we have to teach also the male leaders that watch out these women, right? Maybe they don't complain because they got used to not complaining, that hey, I'm in pain because of menstrual cycle, I am burned out and all this. But watch out, because there are signs, and Dr. Zakia mentioned, Amy mentioned, Latisha mentioned many of these signs basically that they are not well, and eventually there will be a dropout basically, as we have seen and you mentioned, of executives, or they will leave their job. And you see most of the women are in social impact roles or in other roles because they feel like the corporate world, sometimes the consulting world, for example, IM, is too intensive and too tough, and they are between the choice, should I be a great mom sometimes, or should I be a great basically performer and employee? And sometimes they have to choose, unfortunately, at the stage of life. But the labor market, the companies are losing a lot, and this is what I can say.
Erila, that's quite insightful there. And one of the things that you mentioned when you said the clash between what society expects of us as women and what we expect of ourselves as women, and then the solution there. I think one of the things that the system has to do now is to make the office fit women, not we fitting into the office, because the office needs to understand that we have biological clocks and we can change that. We're proud of that, but we can change that. And these are the things that women needs to take in consideration when they step into leadership roles and find themselves in decision-making rooms to stand up for other women. And I love that when you said the best colleagues you had were women. I felt so proud. Not that I don't think having our male counterparts being the best colleagues is not good, but it's a good representation that we look up to, for women to keep showing up in the workplace and doing better at what they love doing. So thank you very much, Erila. Susan, I'll be coming over to you with the next question. And you're a mindfulness coach, so I think you have so much to share with us on what what does psychologically safe leadership look like for women?
Thank you, Salvation, and I love that question, but can I please jump in on the last one?
Go ahead.
Because what we're talking about expectations of us, but expectations of ourselves, expectation creates our identity. And we want to talk about what is happening around us in these workspaces. These workspaces decades ago were initially created by men, but women, we are in there in force, and it is our turn to energetically change what is occurring. And I know everyone knows about it, like attracts like. But if we sit here thinking about how things aren't working out for us, we're attracting more that isn't working out for us. So, you know, this workplace where, you know, you talked about dress code, Amy, I was with you. I hit menopause in a school where I had to keep 30 kids warm. I was too hot and I had the temperature changed for me. And my principal came to address that with me. And I said, I'm in here 5 hours a day. They're in here for 1 and they have a sweater in their backpack. You know, and it was, I had to fight it. But but I thought, no, I'm in a workplace where I'm comfortable. I started to imagine myself being comfortable. What did that look like? It meant expecting things to work out for me. And I don't want that to sound flippant, but if we expect things to change, change occurs. And we can expect it of ourselves and of others. I mean, if you look at the UK right now, the large employers are coming up with menopause action plans. Ladies, where did that come from? Us. From our energy. And this is something that we can absolutely do. So you talk about psychologically safe leadership. What does that look like? It looks like what you were talking about, Salvation, about being proud of being that woman coworker that I think it was Erida said they were the best. Be proud of that, but embrace those psychological rhythms, those emotional rhythms, those hormonal rhythms that are within us all, and flex to that. So expecting the world to change for us is good. And I don't mean stomping around saying you should do what I want, but walking around going, you know what? What if this worked out for me? What if getting pregnant, maybe it doesn't work in this job, but what if it leads to the next best job? What if it leads to something else that's even better for me? And expecting in that realm. And I think leadership in that way means voicing that. Voicing, you know what, this might not work out, but I'm looking forward to something that does. Modeling that for other women instead of modeling, I'm not calling us victims, don't hear this, but there's often that this is happening to us feeling. And we are in charge in so many realms. And where we're not, why don't we expect ourselves to take that foot forward and to be leaders there as well? Because we can and we have. And we could all name 5 women right now that we admire, who have affected change, who have changed their world around them, which has then upshifted the energy on the planet. And aren't we grateful? And I think psychological leadership for women means modeling power, modeling our energetic power, modeling not power over others, but power to belong, power to do what we are brought here to do and to live out our purpose in a world with men.
Yeah, Susan, I agree with you. I wish there's like a like button, a love button. I'm giving all to you on what you just mentioned. Yeah, exactly. And I totally agree with you. Amy, you have something to add to what Susan just said now, do you?
Yes, I'd love to. I mean, I was thinking a lot about psychological safety and what that really means. And in experiences that I've had in global organizations, oftentimes it's standing for an authentic and unified expression of our values. So, you know, I'm sure many people have experienced this. I had, you know, one boss of a global organization who was externally an advocate of women's rights, but he spoke about really smart women in a sexist and unbelievably disparaging way. And every time that would happen, I would respond to it. It didn't create any change, not in that particular individual, but I was very aware of the younger men who were looking to that, you know, modeling the behavior of this older leader that they were seeing. And I needed to, not in an adversarial way, I mean, sometimes I get really annoyed, but to really say the values of our organization, the values that we're working for, the values are about intelligence, trustworthiness, respect, communication. So if you call this brilliant Harvard PhD international speaker a hot babe, that is not okay. It is really not okay. Now this, I mean, it still happens. And unfortunately, I think some things are changing in other parts of the world. In America, we're seeing a rise of locker room talk. And I think it's really important for the women in the room to, in order to create psychological safety, is to hold to our values in a way that is peaceful but firm. The great Vietnamese Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh used to talk about walking peacefully, and he would go to these anti-nuclear marches and people were very angry. And he said, no, we have to manifest peace with our being, but it also means being very strong. And I think that, one thing that I found is that the culture in my home country is changing in ways that are less friendly to women. And I think it's something that for us to feel like we're safe to continue to move forward, we need to really value our quiet but firm authenticity and recognize that we have to continue to support each other and a values-led workplace, even in environments not in a an aggressive way, but in a way that is positive and uncompromising. And otherwise, I really do worry about the next generation coming up and what they're going to model.
Yes, Susan and Amy, with what you just shared with us, I think that we should be educators as women. I think we are naturally, we're born with the skills to be educators. I mean, look at what happens with the genetics of bringing a child into the world and then having to teach the child how to use a spoon to eat, how to listen, how to wash their hands, how to, these things, we do not have to go to university to learn that we need to do that. This is a natural instinct, and women are born to be educators by nature. I think, and with what Susan shared with us from her experience with when she was having menopause, the experience of having the heat there. If she doesn't stand up for herself, no one will. If she doesn't share her experience and say, look, this is what I'm going through, and you need to understand and support me, no one will. And I think we need to also represent ourselves in a way that others should understand us and support us, even though they do not agree with what we're going through or understand us in a way that they should understand us. Like with what you just shared, that your email now, with the male counterparts looking up to you. I'm sure somewhere, wherever they are right now in the world, one day they will cross paths with a scenario similar to what goes on in the office, and they will quote you, Amy. They would say, I know somebody that stood up for something like this. You may not know it, but we're sowing seeds, and those seeds germinate. And that's why we need to stand up for ourselves. We need to educate others around us. So I think we need to carry that forward. We need to carry the mindset that we need to stand up for ourselves non-violently as much as we can, but we need to carry it forward. Letitia, we don't have much time, Letitia. I want you to take us to the next question, and then please briefly, I know you've mentioned a bit of this before, how does work intersect with women's health? Just briefly, and then we'll move forward. Sorry, Letitia, your mic is muted. Please unmute. Yeah.
Apologize.
Sorry.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, how does work intersect with women's health? Was that the question?
Yes.
I think ultimately it's being able to identify to what all the ladies have said, but it's being able to really identify what does health mean, right? What does healthy look like in an organization? And it's being able to talk about it. And so when we say like it really intersects, like it is being able to, and I've said this before, call out loud the things that we might be dealing with. It's not compartmentalizing it, but it's leaning into it. It's not being afraid to have the conversations. It's not being afraid. And I know people get tired of hearing this, but when someone says, how are you doing? It is saying, today's not a good day, right? Or this moment's not a good moment for me. And so it is truly leaning in to whatever it is that you are going through and not being afraid that we will be labeled as incompetent of doing our job, right? That we are not worthy of doing our job. So it's being able to parse out those two things and instead being able to say, you are very much worthy of being in this role. And what humanizes it are the things that you go through. And so I think that's where it lives, at the intersection. And that's when we start to have those healthy conversations.
Yes, I agree with you, Letitia. On one, I would just zoom into Dr. Zakia. Letitia, before I zoom into Dr. Zakia, I just wanted to point out that a scenario that played out in my class as a teacher, as a student teacher in my service time, was that a student had her first experience of menstrual cycle, and she didn't know what it was. And then she stood up and everybody started laughing. I'm like, what's going on in my class? And I turned back. We moved from talking about farms and the reason why we plant vegetables in farms to talking about menstrual cycle. And then it occurred to me that what's happening is that even the education system do not create room to be able to integrate women biological system in education to make create awareness even in the classrooms so that these things do not occur. I felt sorry for that little girl that she was so embarrassed. But it's concerning that we don't take these things into notice. And that's why we keep talking about systems to recognize where we need to bring the intersection of women's health and addressing that issue. So thank you very much, Letitia, on that. Dr. Sakir, just before we wrap up, just briefly tell us, what does equitable health support in corporate policy look like? We'll be talking about systems. Now let's talk about what does it support? What does the policy look like to us?
Well, the policy has to look beyond just maternity leave. I think we've been talking about maternity leave for so long, but that's just the very basic thing that all women, all working women should be given regardless. It has to include things that will increase longevity and lifespan and the health of a woman. Things like fertility and IVF support if that's needed. Those who are caregivers, who have small children, work flexibility so they're able to do both and not have to be burnt out at either end. Any kind of preventative screening would be great for women to have access to. I think when it comes to equity, it means recognizing that there's a lot more to this than just physical presence. It's recognizing the invisible labor that women have to do all the time. So women perform a majority of the caregiving responsibilities throughout the world. And the companies, they need to recognize that this is the reality, and they have to create policies that support that so that it can lead to employee retention, right? In a workplace culture positivity. The one thing they need to realize is losing one employee for corporate companies, it takes about $40,000 in hiring another person to retrain them, to teach them and have them be on board to the level of the person that they are losing. So instead of facing that as a loss, they need to see how that is an actual loss from their bottom line and use that information to change the policies that they have in their workplace culture. I think this is a strategy that's really easily attainable, and it would actually benefit them and benefit their bottom line, as well as the mental health and the physical health of the female employee. So corporate America, corporate anywhere, corporate companies they're very tangible, attainable things that they can do to change the problem, where in fact, in the end, it will benefit them long term as far as retaining the employees that are dedicated to the company, and also saving them a lot of money at the end of the day and making a bigger profit. So this is good all around. I'm not really sure why it's not seen that way, but when you look at the numbers, that really is how it plays out.
Yeah, Dr. Zaki, I'm also not sure why it's not saying that way as well. It's not difficult to see, right? Like we can see it in the open, it's there, Thank you very much, Dr. Zaki, for that contribution. Arila, just briefly mention one role. What role should stakeholders play in evaluating the companies based on employee health standard? Just maybe one of you.
I think, yeah, sure. One is, for example, the boards, right, and executives that they should really think about well-being KPIs, or let's say burnout rates, or psychologically safety, basically survey scores that they can do. But all this, I am pro of KPIs, but all this should make sure that people really will feel those truthfully. Because what I've seen is things exist on paper most of the time, and we mention maternity leaves, we mention many stuff, but actually in reality, those are not materialized as it should, because people are still. Let me take an example. The menstrual, basically. A paid leave that you can get, for example, in Spain or in Japan. And from the studies, it was found that 0.9% of women were getting this in Japan, because they were afraid if they get this leave, they would basically scold out, or people would say, oh, why you did get this leave right now? I'm not going to give you this project. They will be seen, let's say, not as equals among their peers. Same thing happened in Spain. Everybody was satisfied about this policy, and it's great. I know myself. I suffer a lot from the menstrual cycle pain and all this kind of stuff. But the thing is, many people do not take it because I think the environment around us is not encouraging. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes, I heard you. I think there was like a little glitch there, but I heard you
Yeah.
from my
So the
end.
environment around us is not encouraging us really to kind of be open and really take advantage of these policies that I think Suzanne mentioned. We ourselves have advocated and have pushed for putting those in place.
So it means that we need to see more stakeholders and executive representing the health system. Oh, I know that's much. Arila, are you back here now? Can you hear us?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I
Okay.
was
So
I was trying to wrap up with what you just mentioned on us seeing more leaders, organizations paying attention to supporting health care for employees. We have less than 5 minutes. We'll just do one word and then we'll wrap it up here. Susan, just tell us one word you hope to see in women's healthcare. What do you hope to see? If you can manage one word, shoot.
Ooh, that's mean. Honestly, flexibility, honoring who we are. If we can honor a disabled person with parking spaces and work accommodations and their desks looking a certain way and their aisles working a certain way, why can't we do that for women? Whatever they're going through. Sorry, that's more than one word.
It's okay, Suzanne. Thank you very much for that contribution. I also hope to see flexibility and change. I totally agree with you on that. Dr. Saki, one word.
Funding. We need more funding.
I agree. Yes, of course we do. We
Yes.
do. Latisha, one word. What one word do you hope to see in
Sustainability.
women's sustainability? Yes, it is. Yes, we need to sustain what we're building and support what we already have. Amy, one word.
I'd say we, not he or she. So the
Oh,
one word would be we, would be us, would be the collective.
yes, yes. I love that, Amy. We, of course. Yes, we can all do it together. Thank you, Amy. Erila, one word.
I don't have one word, but I have a quote that I have about this. I believe us women will solve our issues, basically, because we know and we start from this personal issue. So, my quote to all women innovators is don't take permission to innovate, but start where you are with what you know.
I think that will sit with us, Erila. We'll take that home and hopefully we share it where we can. So thank you very much. Susan, Dr. Zaki, Latisha, Amy, and Erila, I had a very great opportunity having these conversations with you. I listened, it was incredible. A lot of what you shared here resonated with me. And let me share this with you before we leave this. Susan, I look up to you. Dr. Zaki, I also look up to you. Letitia, I look up to you. Amy, I look up to you. Arila, I look up to you. You may not know this, but somewhere out there, whatever you do, I'm sure it changes the life of the next person. That changes the life of the next person. That may influence my life, my sister's life, my neighbor's life, wherever. It's really affecting everybody. So we're representing the women of the future, and everything we do is important. It was great to have this conversation with you. Thank you very much for joining, for sharing your perspectives and your expressions. Audience, please follow our speakers. You've heard them speak. They've shared a lot with us. Connect with them. Thank you very much once again to the GatherVerse team and Christopher Lafayette. Our Gather was well.
Thank you, Salvation. A pleasure to
Thank
meet
you
all
so
the
much.
ladies.
Yeah,
Thank
bye.
you so much.
Greetings and welcome to our final fireside discussion of the whole entire session. Dr. Rise, we're happy to have you here. And thank you to the very inspirational roundtable discussion that we just had. And Dr. Rise, can you hear us? You can. All right, let's see if we can troubleshoot that down below, Russell, and communicate with Dr. Rise. And while that's happening, we'll just say that the previous roundtable discussion, amongst the other roundtable discussions that we just had, were just incredible. There was a lot that was expressed. I know I'm personally taking notes, and audience, all of you that are still with us at GatherVerse.live and various other social streams in which we cannot tell how many of you exactly are out there, but we do know there are many of you that are joining us, and strangers, and some for the very first time. There was a lot that was expressed in a roundtable that was led by Salvation Shigeroka, and we certainly do appreciate all the different remarks of the various speakers that have come to join us today on this day one of Women's Health Summit GatherVerse 2026. When we think about the enormity of that which was expressed, by far and large, this is certainly our most intimate summit that we carry in the year. This is our second annual. We do have our men's summit, which has almost as equal depth. But I can certainly say as a man that I am taking notes, and there's just things that I come to appreciate about the different perspectives of how women are seeing women's health when it comes to 2026, and primarily at the intersection of emerging technologies in humanity. And to join me on stage for this fireside discussion, we have Dr. Robin Rise, who we're certainly happy to have return with us to be able to share and impart from her lens perspective on this subject titled Her Health. And Dr. Rise, we're happy to have you. How are you today?
I'm well, and I'm inspired and just absolutely blown away by the possibilities and the inspirational perspectives of all of these different women in a time where we're hearing so much that seems scary and overwhelming and outside of our purview of power. To have this opportunity and to have men and organizations like GatherVerse is essential. It's essential, and together we can make this the world that we want for women, for everybody.
Well met and well expressed, and thank you so much, Dr. Rise. Help me to make sense of what's just been said today. There's been so much that's been unpacked, Dr. Rise. We've talked about women's internal health. We've talked about identifying and understanding our bodies as much as we can, even beyond what a practitioner can. We've talked about decency and the various medical verticals in the world. We've had folks certainly express this intersection of women's health in particular and artificial intelligence and the acceleration of technology. And I would ask that you put a bit of a perspective of what does this mean, the psychology of the matter of things. There's a lot, and our arms can only carry so much. How do we take all this in? Because we know innovation slows down for none of us. It seems aligned with time, doesn't it? Can you give us your perspective on how do we approach this time?
Well, I think we're at a time now where we're seeing that it is going to take all of us working on our piece of holding up the sky together. We can't do it alone. We need each other. We need each other's expertise, and we need to build within a system that feels safe and supportive, which then leads to a sense of belonging, which leads to a sense of purpose, which leads to wanting to express yourself in the way that you were brought here to this planet to do. So I think we're in a time of feeling like it's a solitary mission. We have to do it ourselves. Everything's on us. And in a time when trust and exploitation and all of these things are happening, where we feel like we have to protect ourselves, creating a place like GatherVerse where it is safe to be and express who you are, and trust that there's not a sense of being, I guess I'll just threatened, right? So from a neuroscience perspective, we're talking about getting people into the thinking part of their brain, the true creative, miraculous part of our brain versus the survival parts of our brain, which make us feel shut down and small and scared and just trying to make it through a day. So optimizing for the holistic health, the whole of what impacts us on a day-to-day basis is missing, and missing because in our world we are optimizing for winning and dominance and money and power instead of the collective flourishing and building a village where everybody contributes.
Indeed. Thank you, Dr. Rice. I'm thinking as you were expressing, and it's just this architectural development that's happening in my mind as you speak. And it's making me think about taking everything that you said and then with sudden mobility, adding in the relationship of a machine in this equivalent. It seems to come from nowhere. It seems to be almost everywhere. It's very persistent and invasive in life, and it's transcending traditional digital borders that we've have or perhaps enjoyed for decades. We had someone say today, Dr. Rise, that Gen Z is having more communication with these machines and relationships, if you will, and not necessarily completely of the romantic variety, but relationships, no doubt, where there's friendship that is brewing between both human heart and machine. In your professional view, how do you look at this? And should this be a bigger sounding stage than what it enjoys presently today in March 2026?
So a bigger sounding stage, meaning we should amplify that or we should understand that?
Both. So awareness, and great question. Awareness, um, how alarming this is, that these innovations that are made predominantly by men are now the new next best friend
Yes.
of our children, of our youth, in particular, thematically to this summit, of women, young women.
Absolutely.
And these are really backed and raised by men.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is a time where the technology has made things so easy and so comfortable, and little education or understanding of how these models actually work. I know people of all ages who don't even have a concept of what is happening with AI. And I know that the people who are creating these platforms don't know what's really happening inside the black box either. But the data that's being used is creating these echo chambers and helping people to feel good or seen or heard in a way that they need it, which then eliminates is not the right word, minimizes the desire to find human connection. And while AI, I think, is a miraculous technology,
Sure.
and I'm always been that future forward person, that Star Trek person who wants to be able to have things at my fingertips, at my whim, at my creation. I'm also aware that the way it works is it's taking me and mirroring back to me. And in the human brain, the things that happen within our brain are so much more unknown and complicated, complex, maybe. It's a system that interacts with every other thing. It's not happening within a contained system. So when kids don't know that understanding and mirroring with another person creates changes in their brain in what are called mirror neurons, which means that lasting change happens in real human connection. That doesn't happen with AI. And right, wasn't the word of the year last year brain rot? Right. So when there's a lack of new growth, and a lack of incentive and a lack of understanding of how our human brain works, how our genome works, how our epigenome works, how all of the systems together impinge on who we are and make us who we are. It is not an amalgamation of data. It is sensory, internal, external. It is our upbringing. It is our life experiences. And they don't have that experience, those of us with a little bit of wisdom under our belts. We know, or I know you're just a baby, Christopher, but I know and remember the analog days, and I remember the playing with friends and in the street till the street lights came on, and how you had to learn how to interact and be, and the strengths that people brought, and the places where you had to learn how to be in a functioning society, in a functioning village. And they really see this isolation as over the past few years in particular, as amplifying the fear, the distrust of humans and connection. And AI is a very intoxicating seductive companion.
Does technical isolation, with consideration that it's happening before this level of language models have shown up, it's certainly amplified more. It almost begs the question, Dr. Rice, does this lead to more trust in machines than humans have for one another?
Oh, I think there's evidence already, right, in statistics that say that people feel like it's just easier and more fulfilling to connect with a machine than it is to connect with a human. In therapy, right, my background is as a clinical psychologist with a little bit of a rogue streak that wanted to help people to test themselves into who they really were, right? What's going on underneath the surface? What makes you tick? What are your blind spots? What don't you know you don't know? And some of those sessions are challenging and difficult, and not much pushback comes from an LLM that's trained to be sycophantic and tell you how wise, smart you are. And I understand there's settings and algorithms that can be changed for that, but why test yourself if you don't have to, right? Why push yourself when you don't have to, and you can create your perfect AI girlfriend, boyfriend, and she does exactly as you would wish, and no attachment, attunement, connection impinges on our brain at all, which means that none of our system upgrades. And I think we're in a constant battle now to understand why challenge, difficulty, struggle is essential to solving the problems of the global community, maybe the galactic community. But we have to understand how to do hard things, feel hard things, and transcend.
And what can you envision for the near future progress of women's health with these extraordinarily powerful tools? We know that there certainly is I would say, a degenerative side to AI and a harmful side to AI. But at the same time, which is just so different with this particular applied science, there's tremendous upside. Can we kind of venture to explore what are some of the upsides that you see, Dr. Risen, that you would like to see and that you think is realistic to see near setting?
Absolutely. Again, some of the things I heard this morning were so inspiring because we, as a collective, understand so many different facets of a very complicated problem, and AI can help us aggregate, amalgamate, catalyze, network, answer. It can be a tool of magnificent reduction of cognitive load, of finding patterns, of connecting us in ways that we couldn't do otherwise. And shoot, I just made a movie for my friend, a happy birthday movie, right? Which was so much better than a text. And I was like, man, it's so nice to have there be this facility at my fingertips. I can create things I never could have imagined. But as was also mentioned earlier, it's women need to own their data. Women need to own, right, the systems that we're building. Those need to be valued. So within a safe space, we could move mountains and change the world with
What
technology.
happens? Well, what happens? What happens when we reduce this cognitive load? What are the actual benefits? And what happens when those that have been under this load for, I can imagine, a tremendous amount of time, when this is reduced, what might that propel?
Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? What might that propel? Are you kidding? It's it unleashes a sense of freedom and possibility and power that I can spend nourishing myself, my gifts. And right, there's a saying that women are only as happy as their least happy child or their least happy area, right? Which again, we're wired so different than men. So if women are only as happy as their least happy aspect in the environment, when you are able to take care of those things, right? Happy women make happy kids, make happy husbands, make happy families. All of us should be living from this place of when I'm in the back to the creative thinking part of your brain, which we're meant to be using. That's where we can reach the cosmos. It's just crazy being freed up from that load is liberating.
Dr. Rice, we'll switch a bit of subject here and then we'll conclude at some point here. But I'd be remiss in not at least bringing up the subject that I know of many subjects that is so fond to you, which is community. Community alignment, global alignment, in particular with women and women leaders. This was raised this morning in our first roundtable discussion, and I believe it was raised by Dr. Garcia, which I thought was just spot on. What is the value and why is it so necessary now for global community, in particular of women, in this time of accelerated hyperscale of technology?
Again, back to everybody only has to hold up their small piece of the sky in that kind of a scenario. When we're in a community together, you don't have to do everything. And right, it highlights the difference between a society built for left brain thinking, we'll call it left brain thinking, where it's right, win, reach a goal. It's exactly what testosterone and male hormones are for, right? Achieve a goal, and no other thing is more important. It's singular focus is what they call it. So think laser beam. And women have everything but that. Sorry, women. But we have what's called diffuse awareness. So all of the things going on, our attention, our brain works to be aware of all the pieces that are going on around us, all the stimuli going on around us. So the more of that we know we're in a safe place, things are taken care of, the kids are okay, grandma's okay, I have food on the table, then everybody together can build what needs to be built for the community table, for the whole community to be fed, and how to take care of those who are pregnant, right? We heard about maternity leave and menopause and all of these features that the finite world, the masculine world doesn't understand. They don't experience it. And it is a collaboration between the men and the women together that makes such a miraculous world. We need both. And having those in balance is essential. So women together move mountains, right? And men prefer and are better at single focus, being the leader, makes a perfect system. But together we have so much relief.
We talk about women. Many of us were raised by women. I know that I was raised by strong women in the communities I grew up in, very strong women and men, but very strong women. I think about the role that's often, and I know in communities where I come from, women are very looked at as protectors, leaders, guides. I think about this.
Mhm.
We see this manifested in the animal kingdoms of the world and the way that the woman plays the role of what she plays. There's a disbalance in medical technology and health. There's a severe disbalance. I think Dr. Zakaria talked about the lack of funding in the previous roundtable discussion we just had. There's a great disbalance, and it seems to me, Dr. Risen, I'd like for you to chime in on this briefly, if you will, that if we do not start to, if you will, pony up now to start funding more women-led platforms, women-led entrepreneurs, especially that are building in the medical theater, I have a fear that we may not be afforded this opportunity again. And to know that we're heading into a theater where it's persistently developed and engineered by men, it just seems inherently wrong and it seems inherently false. And it doesn't seem like the greatest foundation in which to build upon.
No, it's in my opinion, it's a dangerous place to build on because nowhere in nature are things as out of balance as they are in the world currently between authority and patriarchal values. So women together have, it's a mission. For me, it's a mission, it's a movement, it is a calling that when we can trust each other and build together and create a larger voice, a larger movement, we'll start getting attention. But it's been decades, well, maybe even centuries of being undervalued, underseen, underrepresented, underchosen. Our voices have been very silenced. And this is our time, ladies. It is just time for us to lock arms and really build something that supports the growth of a society and civilization and protect our kids and 7 generations hence. It's just a time of building that place, all of those things that the women talked about this morning and on the She Summit, right? All of these women, all of these humans are miraculous pieces of this big puzzle, and bringing that together, we have so much more power than we know by doing that, and amplified by this technology rather than captured by it. Now is the time.
Wow. Amplified rather than captured by it. And shout out to the superhero engine, She Summit.
Yeah, amazing.
In closing, Dr. Risen, thank you so much for imparting so much onto us. You talk about development and building. There are many things you've seen in your tenure thus far in life. I suspect much more to come, both professionally and personally. To the women innovators, the leaders that are listening to us now, we're dialed in many different social streams right now. Many people are at GatherVerse.live. To what extent, we do not know. To the many people that are with us right now, that are listening, that are gathering in, asking themselves, there are many things I could build, but what are some more of the important places in which I should build? What would you suggest to them, Dr. Rise, if they said, Dr. Rise, I want to build, what should I build? Where should I build?
So I'm forgetting her name, but the woman who talked about the toothbrush test, right? Women are really good at using the things that work for them. And when we start building systems that support women and founders, leaders, builders, creators, architects, building things, women know what works for us. We use it. We will support it. And there's so many things that have been created and underfunded, put not paid any attention to, that if all of those things were resurrected, all of the wisdom of women, of things that could potentially be useful, the market will decide, women will decide, I'll use this, I won't use this. Creating the safe container is the essential piece. If you're afraid you're going to be threatened, taken advantage of, or suppressed, we don't. So having that safe community collaboration, your IP is your IP, your data is your data, bring your stuff, we'll test it out. We have the place, we have the community, and we know what we need.
We know what we need. It's because of people such as yourself and the GatherVerse community that has arrived today, which makes me so thankful to have the opportunity to help support, to become a student for a day and more, and to align an allyship. And thankful for leaders such as yourself, Dr. Rise, the GatherVerse community is, for not only saying these things, but living them. And we do look forward to having you back again with us. And we look forward to seeing what Dr. Rise is going to be building and sharing with us in the future. I'm not a bird on the limb peeking through the window, but I'm told it's extraordinary, some of the things that you're set to launch soon, and we look forward to seeing that.
Ooh, what a great little teaser. But yes, yeah. So I would love to connect with any women, founders, tech people, women who have something to say that they feel like needs to be seen. Let's start building, girls.
And you heard it right here, live on this fireside chat. At the conclusion of our GatherVerse Women's Health Summit 2026 audience, do take time to not only follow Dr. Rise, but to partner, connect, dialogue, and build with her as well. She's opened the door. I certainly hope that each of you, women and men that are here, will walk through. Dr. Rise, thank you for your time. Our gather was well.
Honored.
And with that said, this brings us to the conclusion of GatherVerse Women's Health Summit, Day 1, 2026. We'd like to thank each of you that have arrived and enjoyed us today at GatherVerse.live and the various social streams that we have. We know that many of you are watching from around the world, transmetropolitan, transcontinental. We're very happy to have each of you to come and join us, in particular for this 41st Global GatherVerse event. There are so many things and so many ways to express how we feel about a number of given things, and we're so appreciative that you feel that you can come here to GatherVerse to share them. Audience, any of you that may have something on your heart that you would like to share, all you need is to apply. And hopefully we'll find you on stage with us, sharing space and time that we don't get back, that you'll share these moments and these opportunities with us. With that said, we have GatherVerse Women's Health Summit Day 2 tomorrow, and we have a lineup of speakers that have come to assemble from various places around the world to continue thematically this discussion on Women's Health Summits and in women's health at the intersection of innovation. At GatherVerse, we meet at the intersection of accessibility, education, community development, equality, safety, privacy, wellness, and ethics, care, and compassion. We hope that your time was well spent with us. I know that mine certainly was, and we look forward to sojourning with you and gathering with you again. And for today, our gather was well. And when we meet again, may our gather be well.